jailbreak tag. We did sharks and minnows with rings.
Sharks and minnows. Oh boy, that was always fun.
I didn't do McHatton's favorite, which is what we call asteroids. It's where the kids have to skate the length of the rink without getting hit by a puck or a ring.
Yeah.
And I was the only coach for like 18 kids this evening. So I didn't want to quite take out my anger that way.
Hello, Frank. Oh, we just.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, there he is.
Got him.
Can you hear us, Frank?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Hold on, I gotta start. We're live, Frank. Just to let you know on the. I know.
Don't get yourself in trouble.
Yeah, because he can get in so much trouble too.
You guys don't look like you're involved with anybody, though. I mean, not romantically speaking. I mean, you're just kind of sitting. Are we?
This is my.
I'm gonna do a wooger.
This is my office. What do you mean?
Well, you said we're live, but
we're live on video.
People like to watch us, Frank. It's weird. I know.
Yeah. Okay. Let me get some tweets ready and for the live video, and we'll see how we're doing here.
So, Frank, do you have a wine? Do you have a GPL wine of the week queued up yet for the overtime?
I have something better.
Oh,
that's part of the reason why I'm a little bit delayed.
Oh,
Stay tuned. Stay tuned, everyone.
I was going to make an herbal tea. It was getting too late in the night and thought, hell with it. I'm going to be a big boy tonight.
Wow.
So you'll have to wait.
I usually do wait for overtime to crack into my beverage of choice. I even started doing a poll now to get some audience feedback on what I should put in my body.
Don't go there. I would rather have why? Why would I rather have earphones?
You can set up to whatever, however you need to.
Well,
did you have a microphone during the U of M Zoom today?
Yeah, look at this. It's a big honking.
Oh yeah, you sounded good.
Yeah, I thought you sounded good too. I was just listening to that.
Right. But I can't hook it into my tablet.
Oh.
I had to get a fancy little adapter. I'm not going to be able to show you it, but I can show you the box. Got this
some kind of lightning
What's
adapter.
At the other end?
It's a lightning adapter, so it's lightning to USB 3. Lightning to USB 3.
Wow.
Is the thing. So you can plug in. Because the problem is with the microphones, they got to be powered by a USB or something.
Yeah, that's my microphone. It's USB powered.
Yeah, mine's USB powered.
So if you get one of these adapters, it says USB 3 camera adapter, but it powers your mic. You have your lightning power cable that goes in there. Jesse Pierce of the Bar Down Beauties let me in on this little secret. So
This would do it.
That looks like USB-C though. That looks like USB-C.
I wish they'd label them. Hey, you just tell me when I need to be on.
We can hear you, and that's all that matters, Frank. And you can see us and you can hear us. So that's all that matters too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. We're getting live. We got 17 people watching us live already.
nice.
They're here to see you, Frank.
And hearing us too.
I hope they can hear us.
Oh,
They should be able to. That's kind of the important thing.
I just don't want to pull a Tom Brenneman,
You could, hey, this is the internet. You could say whatever you want. I just put explicit on it. We've done it many times where we've dropped some F-bombs and things like that. And all you have to do is label the podcast as
he may have used some terms that I
Oh,
don't
well,
recommend
yeah, that's
Frank
different.
using. That's a
Yeah.
different thing.
We're not going there.
I'm sorry, folks, for rocking your boat, but
No, you get all set up. We'll hear you. You're good.
my foot came off my thing.
Is this the iPad you use for your broadcasts?
The very one. You want to see it?
No, it's an iPad. But I think that's how you. Well, I won't talk about it yet, but we can talk about it later. Kind of how your new setup in TCF Bank. It'll be interesting to hear more about that. Okay, looks like well, everyone's listening. So let me.
You fired the last time I talked about that. Never mind.
Oh, jeez. Oh, stop.
I'll bring it up if you don't.
You can bring up whatever you want.
I got my sippy cup.
Even your grandchildren are too old for that now, Frank.
Ooh, hey, good one. Good one.
Yeah, well, there you go. Okay, let's see. Okay, we're ready here. I am going to start. Oh, I bet I need to hit record. That's one thing I always forget to do on video. So record the video. There we go. Podcast ready to go. Vigo is tweeting. Yeah, right. Uh-oh, Rob Shields texted me. That's got to be trouble, isn't it?
Uh-oh. Oh, don't worry. He'll change it anyway.
Oh.
I'm in a good mood tonight, boy. You know what? Your show's much better with the video.
We like the video. We like being able to see people, but it's just with the Zoom really helps. You have to have a certain kind of account in Zoom to be able to do this, to be able to broadcast live on the YouTube channel. So that's kind of how it goes. And Rob wants to know the link. Oh, geez, Rob. So give me 1 second as I send him the link because
Don't we have like
doesn't he use Twitter? Like you just put it out there.
I know.
We're not going to a Foursquare Brady Bunch scenario here, if that's what Rob's insinuating. He's not the featured guest. That's you, Frank.
I get it.
Yeah. All right. Screw Rob. We're starting the show.
Better. Got millions of people waiting.
Yeah, we do. Okie dokie. Well, oops. That's not what I wanted yet. I have to actually hit record. Oh, you giggle, Frank.
There's only one other guy.
There's only one producer here, and it's me.
Technically challenged as you are, but go ahead.
Let's start the show.
Good idea.
This is the GPL podcast, sponsored by Jerry Peters and First Class Mortgage. Our expertise, your peace of mind. Visit us at firstclassmortgage.com. Now, here's Jupe and Vigo. Good evening and welcome to the GPL podcast, episode number 188. Well, we're bringing back our very first guest, and it's for the record 9th time. Frank Mazzocco was on show number 2 more than 10 years ago now. You were on show number 2, Frank. We didn't have a guest the first show. We were just trying to figure it out. But Frank, welcome back to the 9th time to the GPL podcast.
Thanks. I thought I was on the first show, and I thought I was really adventurous back at the time, but
not quite, but that we were just trying something back then. We weren't live back then. We were just recording. I believe even that first show we actually had video so we could see each other, but we've been doing audio ever since. Been doing live audio for at least 7 or 8 years, and this season we went to live video with everyone zooming now. Everyone's got the technology that we can see you for the podcast now, Frank.
Well, we can see you. I mean, it's really enhanced the show. Can you hear me okay? Because I'm like,
we can hear you just fine.
I have a microphone in my hand. I think it's just made the show sharper, cleaner, more spontaneous. And so it's a good addition. Congratulations.
I think it's fun just to see people's reactions, because a lot of times there's a lot of, visual cues that you're not going to get on audio. Obviously, audio is still the big thing, and we record the show and whatnot. What's become popular actually is the overtime part. We've had an overtime go. We had an overtime go an hour and 20 minutes.
Oh no!
With Paul Caponigri. He was in Florida, so it was getting close to 1 a.m. his time when we shut down. But
and boy, with his talent fees, you probably went broke. I mean, I'm giving you the bargain rate.
Well, he gets the same bargain rate. He loves coming on the show, and we love having him. We love having you. But it's just that bonus for people who watch live. You get the audio recording. You're not going to get the overtime. It's for the people who watch live. So we love this bit, and it's a fun adventure. What was also a fun adventure this week, Vigo, is our team bounced back from a terrible series with Wisconsin and shut out the Fighting Irish.
That was the team I was hoping to see this season, weekend and weekend and weekend. They brought back so much veteran talent up front, and that's been the spot of this program that's been kind of a weakness the last couple of years, is forwards who aren't engaged, who can't drive the game. They commit turnovers, feed the other team's offense, and just make the game harder for themselves than they should. What we saw this last weekend was a team that was committed to playing a very honest game. We saw a team that put pucks to the crease and followed it up. And we saw a team take advantage of space and make really fun, creative plays. And we saw a couple goals this weekend that were just great bing, bang, bingo plays that were pretty to watch. And we also saw some plays that were hard, gritty plays. And we didn't see them turn the puck over a lot, which was just, that's how you have to play Notre Dame. And after that Wisconsin series, I was worried. I posted on GPL this week. Yep, we can step away from the ledge. It's still another step away. It's still right there. That ledge is there for any college athlete to just step back towards. But for this weekend, they stepped away and they played the way they have to do to be successful, not just in the Big Ten, but going forward, maybe in a tournament that could happen this year.
On the flip side, Frank, actually, Vig's kind of mentioned there, they didn't turn the puck over, meaning they had a lot of good puck possession. And when you have good puck possession and you're in good position, it not only lends to the offensive side, but it also lends to the defensive side. And obviously, back-to-back shutouts for LaFontaine. It's not all him. I don't think he had too many huge times where he was like struggling or anything, but it was the team defense in front of him that was just outstanding all weekend.
Agreed. It's well, first of all, I'm going to back a little bit.
Okay.
It is Gopher hockey. We live on the edge. I mean, it's just why is it so crazy that they lose 2 to Wisconsin and you think, well, this is it, they're done. I mean, but they really have shown in the last, I don't know how many years, as the teams have had a better personality, they tend to be able to rebound pretty darn well. If they fall flat Friday, tend to come back on Saturday. But it's that inconsistency that drives you nuts. And you think one bad pass out of the defensive zone and the whole ship is going to go right down the tank. But they come back. And who can have a absolutely perfect season anyway? But when this team is playing like they played against Notre Dame, you really got to know your stuff to find out what they aren't doing quite well. Mm-hmm. Because it's really close to like a 98% grade. I mean, they really are good. Vigo would fill in that 2%. That's why he's on this show every week, right?
He's the smart one. I just push you in the right direction, right, Viggs?
Well, Don, harder than I looked.
A face for radio. A face for radio.
Don. Yeah. Thanks, Don Lucia.
The
At
Don
least it
liked
wasn't
you.
over Zoom. At least it wasn't over Zoom when he told it to me.
The Don liked you though.
He acknowledged you in the room. I mean, that's
I know, pretty exciting, high level stuff there.
But I mean, let's talk about that kind of Vigs. Frank talks about a team personality, and and it kind of starts at the top with Mazzocco. It's sorry, Motzko's not a stiff like Lucia was. I'm sorry, he was just kind of a stiff, especially the further along he got.
Well, and I think there was that kind of eggshell feel to everybody in the program.
Yeah,
the leaders weren't always all in. There were a lot of people. You start to get to the end of the season, they're excited to talk to the NHL scouts after the game. They're looking for their points. They're trying to push for offense. They're not playing an honest game. It's kind of like they got one foot out the door already. Maybe there's just a different demeanor right now with this team. You're seeing it in the battle level at faceoffs. I know that was a big part of the weekend against Notre Dame, was to compete for draws. So you're not chasing the puck all the time. There's also an emphasis on blocking shots. So you're helping your goalie out. You're trying to stop the other team from getting easy pucks to the net, and you're just kind of lowering the risk there. And you're also seeing players get deeper in the offensive zone to break the puck out. When you talk about puck support, that usually starts with your center playing below the dots. They've got 4 centers who can do that right now, and it really makes a big difference in their game. If you can win draws and you've got centers who play all 200 feet, the game gets a lot easier.
Well, it was just a good weekend all around, helped out by Wisconsin and Michigan splitting at Michigan last weekend, allowing Minnesota to get back up into first place and to control their own destiny again, Frank, which they lost once, the Badgers came in and swept them.
Yeah, that series certainly had a big effect. And I also, I'll throw it to both of you guys too, which I hadn't thought about until now. So you had the immediate pass with the flat, really subpar weekend against Wisconsin. And then you go back to the last time they played Notre Dame. 2 very flat games. So they almost had like a 4-game make good going when they went into Indiana last weekend. And I'm wondering how much the 4 games collectively may have helped inspire them to dig down a little harder, to play a little deeper. And okay. So do you want to answer that, or do you want me to just ramble on? I got another thing to say too.
Well, I think one thing we got out of these weekends is that the leadership of the team didn't let this marinate any further. I think Brandon McManus talked about this after the Friday game against Notre Dame. He said, Rabs noticed it and called it out. He said, on the bench, when guys aren't playing the right way and are turning over pucks or in the wrong position defensively or cheating, guys on the bench are calling each other out and saying, hey, you need to be here. You can't be there. And it's not the coaches leading this change. It's the players holding each other accountable. And I think that's a level of commitment to a team game that's been missing a little bit. Maybe the leaders haven't found their game and they're still seeking it, so they don't feel confident in setting the standard, or they're already looking ahead to what they're going to be doing in April and May and don't want to invest the time in it. So I think we have a little bit of a difference there. And that's what happened after the Wisconsin week. They had that Monday practice where they paid the program back an hour. After the Notre Dame series, the first time, they had a battle practice to kind of raise the intensity a little bit. So we've seen some responses, and I think that's the encouraging thing there.
And I don't just think it's like the one leader or anything like that. I think of somebody like Justin Kloos, who bled maroon and gold. He really cared, but he wasn't quite able to get the buy-in of everyone else at the same time. It seems like now they have that. They have the lead. People will listen to the leadership. And maybe, Kloos really wanted to have that, and he definitely had the heart. Boy, he really gave it his all when he was here, but it was just the ones around him who didn't quite have that.
It takes more than one. You need more than one leader on a team. It's just, the guy who has the C, he can't get all 20 players going. It's got to be a couple guys on different lines who can keep it going and keep it organized.
In different
this
age
team has
groups,
enough
too.
in different age groups. And this team's got pretty good balance that way. So every line's got some guys who are very reliable, honest players. And it helps. I think seeing Jackson Nelson play with Walker and McLaughlin paid dividends this last weekend. He plays a heavy game. He's good on draws, and he helps support those guys so they can go out and create offense.
How about our boy who got booted twice recently?
Jackson Nelson?
Yeah.
I think it's hard to pin too much on him. He's a big kid, and hits like that in the college game are always going to get called that way. There was a lot of flack on Twitter. I even had a couple of people DMing me with comments on it. Every time in amateur hockey, that's going to get called that way. In the pro game, those might not even be penalties. The refs
technically it's not, but when a head snaps like that, they're going to call it even if he didn't hit him in the head.
The big open ice hit is something that's just not there in the college game. The only way it maybe doesn't get called is if you just go straight through them. But anytime you have that kind of glancing blow kind of collision, it's going to be a penalty.
What did you think of that open ice hit, Frank?
It was a terrible penalty. I mean, I just thought it was a clean hit. It was hard. I mean, I haven't got a voicemail from a friend who said in the middle of the game, which I couldn't answer. It took me till after. Who said I've watched that just as many times as you have, and he says, and it's still a terrible call. I mean, I think technically it was just it was a hard hit, but Troop, you're right. When that head snaps like that, that's going to get the attention of even a ref who can see the play. I mean, I called it whiplash when I saw it, but and it really did look bad. But once you look at the video, I think they could have loosened up. Even, I don't know, even give him a double minor for roughing or something. But I just don't think it was a by the book penalty.
It probably wasn't
contact to the head. It was not contact to the head, but it was a dangerous hit.
Like you said, in the pros, that doesn't even get called. Probably in the juniors, that doesn't even get called.
Hockey's a dangerous game.
It is a dangerous game, but like you're seeing in college football right now, they're trying to protect players who are defenseless. It's gonna hurt them as they go up in levels when all of a sudden they have to deal with those kind of hits a little more. But in the college game, they're trying to take that hit out. The idea of contact in hockey in its truest sense is to separate the player from the puck and to gain possession. It's not to intimidate. It's not to injure. It's not to send a message. That's the difference between amateur hockey and professional hockey.
But the difference is in pro hockey is to send a message.
It is.
Pro hockey is all about sending messages.
But do you think Nelson was doing any of those last three things that you suggest? And I don't either. I
don't think he was, I think that's why they have the game that they do in college, is they want to take that hit out.
Yeah, no, it sounds like I'm saying the guy Bakich was a wimp on the deal, and I'm not saying that.
No.
I mean, he took a hard hit and should have been hurting right from that hit. But I think Bob Mazzocco said it very well, kind of in the heat of the moment, right on our post-game show. He's a big boy. He's going to have to learn how to throw hits like that without blowing people up. He has to learn to tone that back a little bit.
And I think Sampo Ranta is a player who has kind of figured that out a little bit. Like, you've watched him deliver certain hits this year. He knows when to lay the wood, like he did on Notre Dame's captain on Saturday, which Bob called out after the game, calling that his favorite play Ranta made over the weekend. It wasn't the pretty goals. It wasn't the nice assists. It was hitting their defensive captain on his tail on the forecheck. That's what Bob liked. He's like, I don't even recall the pretty between the legs pass on the back door. That doesn't even ring a bell to me.
Oh boy, that was a beautiful play.
That was a beautiful hit he laid. I like that. And I think Sampo's kind of learned, like, he's a big body. And when he first got to the Gophers, he took some bad offensive zone penalties trying to do what he thought he was supposed to do, which is come in hard on the forecheck and hit people. And he made the mistake a couple of times of hitting people from behind or boarding them. And he's kind of learned where to draw the line a little bit. And he said in the post game, you've got to learn that part of the game.
Which goalie did he blow up on home ice? Was that the Notre Dame goalie? One of those series? I can see a dark jersey, and I'm wondering if it was.
I don't remember.
Well, I mean, the coaches tell him to drive to the net.
Well, he was, and then he couldn't stop. He absolutely couldn't stop, and he just got a charging call. I thought it was.
I'll take those calls. If it's an offensive penalty and that's it, and he's trying to get to the goal, that's about the only offensive penalty I don't mind at all. The rest of them, well, when he's cut the corner and trying to cut in, and he's got the puck, I think it's a little different than purposely charging the goal. I mean, it's an aggressive play that has really given him dividends and goals. So I'm not such a huge deal on that.
I'm thankful we have physical play. We have players who can play this.
Yes.
And it's really difficult to do on our large ocean that we call 3M Arena at Mariucci. That's a big rink. And if you can't
and
build
a big name too.
Yeah. You can't build your team around a bunch of hitters and play on that rink. You got to build for speed. But I mean, you look down the middle, you got Reedy, down the middle, but you look up front, you got Reedy and Ranta and Nelson and Myers. They can play big, strong players up front. When's the last time the Gophers had 4 guys up front that could play strong like that, physically strong?
And Perbix. Perbix has done a nice job at center too now. Sure. He plays a heavy game.
Yep. And Munson's going to go in there, maybe not quite as heavy as the others, but he's going to go in there too.
Well, it's not sounding like, with the way the finances are right now, that the rink change is going to happen anytime soon. They still want to do it, but.
Well, they're going to have to do something pretty soon because that rink, that refrigeration system is going to be obsolete.
Correct. It's getting tougher and tougher to buy the refrigerant. Right. Correct.
Yeah. So we go to the Board of Regents and ask for another loan.
No, good luck with that. Because I see you already no.
If they have to replace the rink, if that refrigeration system somehow goes out sometime, what are they going to do?
Well, there is discussion that they don't have to use donor or athletic funds potentially for that piece of it, the refrigerant upgrade. But the problem is they want to do the rink resizing at the same time, which is an additional cost. So what I've heard is that there is probably some way for them to get some of the funding from the state for their HEPR funding. That's basically like for upgrading and repairing buildings. And it's a amount that the legislature agrees to give the university every year to do projects. This could be part of those projects because it's a required update. But the rink size change, that's different. That's going to take a donor to step forward, like the Peltiers and the Nannies have done in the past, and give it to the hockey program to make that update.
And maybe they can
find that donor.
And maybe they can fix the goal by the Zamboni doors too.
Maybe, maybe they can put the pipe in a different spot.
Well, it is true, Frank, that the goals are not quite lined up the same. The goal near the Zamboni doors is slightly moved over because was it about 10 years ago when Lucia wanted to make the space behind the net smaller, so he brought the red line back. Doing this, they had to drill new holes, and they couldn't drill exact spot straight back. They had to go over a couple inches to not hit a pipe. So the goal by the Zamboni's door is like a couple inches one way or the other. And maybe the hole's not so deep, and that's why, need to mix in a salad. Napier always knocks it off.
But the U budget's in a tough spot. They already are going to be, $30 million under budget this year based on revenues lost from ticket sales reduced TV money coming in. They're going to have to take a bridge loan, and then they're going to be having to pay $2 or $3 million to get that debt down for the next 10 or 15 years. And that's basically like another capital project thrown in Mark Coyle's lap. Here you go. Congrats. Deal with the pandemic and have to take out a bridge loan because they can't run a deficit. They're going to have to do some financing to balance their books at the end of the year. We'll find out probably what that's going to be closer to May, June. They just released their financials from last fiscal year this last week. And you could already see some of the impact by March Madness getting canceled in the revenues coming in.
It's the Wooger's fault, isn't it? The Wooger wanted an Olympic arena. He got it. Nanny's like, he mentioned it in Jess Meyer's article. It's like, I never wanted that.
How many people at the time said they never wanted that?
Oh, yeah, he was probably the only one. I don't think people didn't care back then.
Well,
he says it more now, but
at the time it was the way to go. Players were getting better, faster, more skilled. Let's go to the Olympic rink. They had 6 of them in the WCHA.
Those few times we had Olympics on, with the pro players on the big rink. Wow.
Well, yeah.
That was good stuff.
Right.
But in college, when you were Vigs, you love to talk about how college players make mistakes. It's just much more pronounced out there when you get so much more space to go around somebody, or it's harder to hit somebody because you got 15 more feet to go to get to the boards. They can't fix that. They can only bring it in to about 91. It was something around that they can't go.
Well, and the big thing is to change the radius on the corners, so it's not as
they can
deep.
change it. Yep,
because that's a big thing when they narrow the rink to 91 feet or whatever, kind of like they have at Notre Dame, which Blake McLaughlin might really like. He likes that size of rink apparently, but that's the big thing is shrink the rink a little bit, tighten up the corners. It forces everything to come back to the middle much, much faster.
All right. Well, there you go. Well, first, before we get to some things, and actually Pat Micheletti called you out about a month ago here, Frank.
On this show.
He did a little bit. But before we get to that.
But not to my face.
Before we get to that, we have to hear from our sponsor.
Hey, fellow GPLers, this is Jerry Peters from First Class Mortgage. Interest rates are near all-time lows and property values are on the rise. Lower your interest rate and remove monthly PMI at the same time to save thousands of dollars. Or use the equity in your home for debt consolidation and home improvement. The housing market is still hot, so make sure you're prepared by getting a pre-approval letter from me before you start shopping. Mention you heard about me on the GPL podcast and receive a $300 closing cost credit. Some restrictions do apply. Call me today at 612-940-3291 or visit firstclassmortgage.com to fill out a free online application. My NMLS number is 480200. First Class Mortgages is 322842. This is not an offer to lock into an interest rate agreement under Minnesota law. First Class Mortgage is an equal housing lender.
And of course, we thank Jerry, as always, for sponsoring the GPL podcast. Well, right before the commercial, I mentioned Pat Micheletti kind of called you out during his debut of the podcast back in, I think it was November, December. And he pretty much says your marinara sauce sucks. He says you need to do better, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
He went right to your Italian, right into the Italian home right there. I mean, what do you say to old Pat on that?
I don't want to cook off with Pat because this will be the truth, right? Of course, when people say this is the truth, then it really isn't, but this is the truth. My sauce, my family sauce, is very good, but it's not as spiced as he would have it, and therefore a lot of people would side by side would think mine is flat. But if you come over to my house and we're going to do pasta and have the sauce, and it would be very good. So now, is his better? The only thing I was able to get him on is he was bragging about his on the air. And he said, and then we add the sausage. And I said, well, where do you get your sausage? And I said, well, I buy it at the store. And I said, oh, store-bought sausage in your homemade sauce?
Well, you can go to a meat market and get a nice,
Well, I had to slam him with something. I mean, come on.
Well, I mean, if you're a true chef, for your top meals, you have a butcher in mind for certain meals. And I think that's a valid argument there, Frank. If he's not saying Lowry Hill meats or, ready cuts down on Johnson or Marinos or
the meat,
Kamarchik's,
then make your own, grind it, get the casing, make your own sausage that way. Yep.
Okay. Well, here we go. This summer, then we're having a cook-off.
Oh no, we're not.
We're gonna have a gathering at your house, Frank. Yeah, we're Well, that's perfect timing there. COVID. There's so many questions people talking about, what's your favorite broadcast place and what's location. And this year you're not going on the road at all. You're stuck at TCF Bank. I suppose that's good and bad.
Maybe.
Oh,
Maybe. That's all I'm going to say. Just maybe.
What a tease that is.
That's a tease. And that's as far as I can go with my NDA.
How has it gone for you with the TV feeds? You guys sound pretty smooth. Like it sounds great, which is all that really matters. But yeah, obviously you're not getting close to the players. You're not having as many conversations with players. Like you would say, like after you're done interviewing them, you might get a couple scoops or something like that, or just the interaction with them and people and coaches. How has it been for you this year?
Well, it hasn't been ideal, but it's a lot better than I ever hoped for. Excuse me. So yeah, no, it's not ideal. You miss the contact with the players, and I'm just talking about really little things like you pass in the hotel lobby and you might just exchange some small talk, or you might say, did he really get hit in the head, or did, were we seeing things? You might get just a little different insight here and there, or in the coffee shop, or of course then on the Thursday night if they skate in the visiting rink, or the Friday morning when they have morning skate. You can pick up a lot more stuff hanging around the rink in those situations. So you miss that. We can do it for a year. Mm-hmm. There's some that are thinking that we might have to do this again next year. I don't know. I'm not enough of an expert on this to know whether it'll clear up. But here we go. I got in trouble before when I did this, but I hope we don't do this forever. Road games from a studio, and but it's a real possibility.
I think it might be more of the future for television, maybe, than radio. Television's quite, that's quite expensive to put on a TV show and to send people. And I'm guessing, a lot of things, obviously Wally and you guys bring your own equipment and things like that. So yeah.
But TV brings in much more revenue, right?
True.
To float that. So perspective, I don't know. I don't know what the dollars are.
Do you miss the travel?
I was thinking of this question. I miss Friday morning and Saturday morning breakfast. Somebody that serves me a meal of my choice when I'm just waking up.
I have papers to worry about. You go fix your own breakfast, Frank. Well,
I do not miss the trying to get to the bus on time. I mean,
yeah.
It's just another deadline during the day and I don't do well with deadlines, right? I'm kind of a free floater, sometimes I'm a floater, and I just, so I really have to work hard to make sure I'm at the bus ahead of time. And so there's that little bit of that I don't.
Because you travel much more than you did with television. I mean, with radio, you were going to Anchorage. You were going to the playoffs. Whereas, once MSC/FSN was done, your year was done. But now you're traveling much more than you did back in your TV days.
Right.
Because in TV, you covered one series with Alaska Anchorage, the famous studio series, which was a lot of fun, actually. But now, for those last however many years, you got to go up to Anchorage. And I don't know if you had any sub-zero temperatures, but even when it's cold, it's gorgeous up there.
Well, if you don't mind darkness at 9 o'clock in the morning, it's fine. But it is a little depressing at 9 in the morning when you look out your hotel window and you see the Christmas lights on the trees down at street level. That's a little bit depressing. But no, here's the biggest advantage, the biggest difference. For whatever reason, well, all right, when Wally and I did our Channel 29 days and we were booking our own rooms and everything else.
The kitten that roars.
Kitten that roars. Yep. Legendary. We'd stay in the same hotel that the team did.
Mm-hmm.
And that was good. We had that contact and everything. For whatever reason, when MSC came along and then Fox continued that, we stayed at a different hotel. That was awful.
Mm-hmm.
You're so disconnected because we're on the air, and by the time we get wrapped up and you got to pay homage to everybody in the truck after the game is done, and then the team is gone. And you don't see them until you show up at the rink the next day. I hated that. That was the worst part of the TV travel. So now back in radio, I mean, that's one of the reasons this job is so much more fun. I mean, we have contact with the players on Wednesday, Thursday if we're flying out of town, Friday and Saturday. You can enjoy if they win on the road, you can enjoy that with them. It's just a whole bunch better.
I know that I miss road trips, Frank. My
wife is thinking the same thing.
I think many of the times in Duluth, Vigs, we've been up there and had many good times up in Duluth. I'm hoping we can get back there for another weekend sometime soon. I'm not sure how all those contracts are going to turn out. Everything's kind of shifted a year, but with the Big Ten, we're not seeing these local schools as much, Vigs, and we're not getting the road trips. And it was a couple. It used to be almost Duluth every year, and now it's every couple of years that we get to go up there. And I miss those days. I'm guessing you do too, Vigs.
Yeah, it's different when you can't even go to the rink to watch hockey, and you just miss that atmosphere.
The sounds of hockey.
The sounds of hockey, walking around. I enjoy doing the walkabouts at hockey games. Between periods, you get to walk around the concourse and run into people and just have those small interactions where you catch up with people that you haven't seen for a while unexpectedly. The running into people up in the press box when covering games at Mariucci, that's fun. It's hard to not have that in our lives. Even coaching, I'm coaching mini mites and mites for my kids right now. You have to, get there. Kids are already dressed. Coaches have their helmets on and everything. You put on your skates, you go on the ice, you get done, you untie the skates, you're supposed to skedaddle and get out of there. So you just kind of miss that camaraderie. And I know players are kind of going through the same thing, and coaches, you're just not having that time where you get to interact with people that you've taken for granted as being able to spend that much time together with them. And it takes a lot out of it.
And Frank, even further from that, we've got people who have either kind of lost their job or decided to leave their job. You've got Nygaard up in Duluth, who was always there. I'm blanking on the St. Cloud State SID.
Tom Nelson.
Nelson, yes. You see these people at the rink. You see them once a year, but it's still, have a nice conversation with these people. And I think it's that. And even like seeing you, I haven't seen you in almost a year, except for on Zoom here. And it's like we haven't had a chance to go out and just have a burger at Maxwell's after a game, and that's kind of the most fun. Or even after the game, hey, we'll see some of the referees, and they'll come over and tell us, yeah, we called this because of that, and it's just that stuff you don't get when we're sitting at home watching it on TV, or you're at the arena or at TCF Bank, broadcasting games.
Right. Or go up to the refs and say, hey, I don't understand this penalty, or I don't understand this whistle. Tell me, give me the reasons. And most of them are just, you approach them the right way, they're going to give you the good explanation.
They're hockey guys. They really are. Yeah. And I think that makes all the difference in the world. You can come up to them and they'll say, oh, that was good. And like, oh, they'll even say sometimes, yeah, we probably shouldn't have done that, but hey, that's how it goes. And you always get the honesty from them. And like I said, they're hockey guys. They completely get it.
Right.
All right, Frank, we got a bunch of Twitter questions. I'm going to hit you up. Darren Bakken, who's your favorite Gopher of all time to watch and your favorite ever Gopher hockey game to broadcast?
There's no answer to that question. I saw that tweet yesterday and I thought,
yep. The 2007 WCHA Final Five is pretty much a classic.
Yeah.
And the ones before that even. Yeah, was it the 2000 other Final Five games? It's just,
that one I'm really happy for the replay on that one. I didn't remember enough about that game. And there's a certain amount of lawyer in me that I present the case and then I dump it and I go on to the next one. And I've done a few, right? I can't remember them all. But anyway, I kind of remember atmospheres more and those kinds of things. And I remember Colorado College coming to Mariucci Arena. And it was the number 1 against number 2.
Backhand Crowley.
Yeah.
Backhand Crowley, that late goal. It erupted.
All I remember is just the whole atmosphere was so energized. That was a great.
Well, I'm a Crowley guy since I went to Jefferson, and I never forget, Rasmussen goes wide, throws a backhand over there. He kicks it with his skate and roofs it backhand right in front of the goalie. And I remember the place just erupted. You erupted. I can still hear your voice calling that game. Wow, that was, and a lot of people will say, hey, how about the Ehrman penalty shot? We hadn't had a penalty shot you couldn't remember in forever. That crowd was electric. But players, it's a hard time. For me, my all-time favorite is Crowley. I'm always going to be biased against it. I think that kid was just magical on the ice. And then you had this week where Bonin and Crowley were two of the Gophers selected to the all 1990s team in the WCHA. I'd say good picks there. So it's hard to pick. How about you, Viggs? Who's your all-time favorite Gopher?
Oh boy, it is a tough one when you start digging back. I definitely remember my first memories of watching Gopher hockey. I was a little kid, and my dad would bring me to the old rink, and he had season tickets behind the visiting penalty box, so I could see kind of the Gopher bench, and I could see the visiting team bench really well, and I could hear students above me, and then I had Goldie just to my right, and so it was a great spot as a kid to grow up learning the game, watching the game. And I think my favorite player at that time was Corey Millen. And one of the reasons was when Corey Millen got the puck at his own zone about the blue line, everybody stood up because there was just the feeling that when he touched the puck, he could skate by anybody and there was a scoring chance coming. And so I learned as a little kid, that is something to watch for. And I just gravitated to watching him all over the ice. And that's how I kind of became a college hockey fan. And I just remember seeing him race and just the excitement level of the building. And I just thought that was so neat and special.
Wow. And as just a second thinking about that CC Minnesota game that you called back in the mid 90s, Frank, it was such a big matchup that the highlights of that game actually made it on Sports Center. College highlights in kind of a middle of a season on Sports Center, because it was such a big matchup. And it was, I remember it was just crazy, the atmosphere, the buildup and everything, but it wasn't one of those top 10 things. It was actually, here are the highlights from this game on Sports Center that night. So that's how big that game was.
Yeah. Well, it was 1 versus 2. I don't remember
Yep.
which ranking at the time, but all I remember is it was a 1 versus 2.
I believe CC was 1 at the time. And then they came back and won the next night. So,
almost anything at the Excel Energy Center, the Final 5. I mean, that was the pinnacle. That was one of those situations where I didn't mind sort of being on the bench then for the NCAAs, because that tournament was as good as any, that tournament was as good as just about any Frozen Four. I mean, it was
except for your final game calling a TV was how many North Dakota games in a row?
6. But who's counting?
Who's counting? Oh, we obviously love the Final 5, but Minnesota was not good. And the 2007 Final 5 championship game was the last time they won a Final 5. They didn't they didn't do much after that.
Well, games were great. I don't know. Games after. Well, that was things were.
Those mid 2000s was nuts.
Yeah.
Those were the years where you had a lot of players who were looking at where they were going to be in May. And it wasn't going to be in a college hockey uniform. They were going to be looking at pro contracts. And that was the part of college hockey where you went through that transition of the schools that had the deeper, older teams with kids who stuck around were more successful. And these teams that had so many young players never were able to gain the footing. And they were always kind of looking one way. And it wasn't towards the Frozen Four, and it wasn't towards their conference tournament.
Mm-hmm.
But the games were fun.
Followed up a week later with another overtime thriller in the Pepsi Center in front of about 5,000 fans the next week.
Yep.
Not quite the same. And that was a great game, but without the atmosphere in Pepsi Center, it wasn't great. Another question. This is from Lax Ref. Yeah, he wants to know, what road trip do you miss the most since you're not traveling this year?
Michigan Tech.
You never got to do much television there, but you did towards the end. Early on, they never really did TV there, either MSC or early on FSN years.
Maybe did 2 games there somewhere along the line.
Yeah, you did a few towards the end of your TV career.
We did more in Marquette because we had
Northern Michigan. Yeah,
we couldn't get crew in Houghton for some reason, unless we were going to bring up all of our people, and that got expensive.
And that's what you did, though. Didn't you guys take a bus up there? And didn't they bus the entire crew up there one year? Holy drunkenness, Batman.
Those of us snobs flew up, and the rest of the crew.
I remember going up with a bunch of my friends for one of those Houghton series, and they saw you Sunday as you were on your way to the plane, and we all kind of looked at each other and were like, we have a 7-hour drive. No one's quite feeling their best. This is going to be a long day.
Yeah, we weren't feeling our best either, but wasn't a long day. It's just, for some odd reason, it's a fun town. It's just,
oh yeah.
I don't know what's so laid back about it. I mean, there's 2 restaurants there. There's a, what's the one called? The Library, I think, which has great food. And then either that street or another street over, you go down a steep hill, they're all steep. And then there's a breakfast joint down there. There's a great breakfast joint. And then, the beer was
a lot of the Gopher fans miss that trip so much, and quite a few of them are in the chat right now. They go every summer. They go up there for like an extended weekend and just go to Houghton and do their partying in the summer.
Yeah.
Because they don't get to go on that road trip anymore. So they do that instead.
It's gorgeous up there.
Okay, Viggs, I'm seeing a question, anything possible, but in your guys' eyes, will there be 2 Big Tens in the NCAA field of 16? This is from Steve 2120. I think it's going to be tough to get more than 2 unless, Michigan really kind of pushes for a title. But Michigan's not, you never know with Michigan.
Yeah, you never know with Michigan because their team was going through so much turmoil during that first part of the year with guys going to the World Junior, some COVID cases, things like that. So you don't really know what was going on there. I thought, Kemp's discussion about the NCAA tournament this week, Bob Mazzocco didn't really get a lot out of that other than there's going to be some criteria. Jeff Jackson's the Big Ten representative on advising how they're going to move forward. I thought the one interesting thing is that they are going to try to use their existing metrics with like pairwise to basically evaluate teams in conference and figure out which teams out of the conference are the ones that deserve to get a tournament bid. And I was kind of looking at the Big Ten. Most teams have played kind of comparable schedules. Mm-hmm. So the standings of the league match up to the pairwise rankings pretty well. And I think Minnesota and Wisconsin have separated themselves as the 2 favorites to get into the tournament. Now, if one of those teams in the bottom half of the conference win the tournament, when you're playing 3 one-game shots, that is a possibility. The Big Ten, there is some separation overall on the season, but during a shortened, condensed weekend, any of the teams in the league really could come out of it getting that automatic qualifier. Now it's up to the league whether or not they would have that automatic qualifier get the bid or a conference tournament or a regular season champion. I assume they will go for the automatic qualifier. So in that case, maybe Minnesota or Wisconsin doesn't make it through. But I do think the pairwise thing only really applies to certain leagues like Hockey East. When you have a team like BU who's only played 10 games, they rank top for pairwise, but they're like 6th in the league. So we can see something similar happen in some of the other leagues like NCHC, where maybe a team doesn't get enough games, so it's hard for them to finish atop their conference. But it's gonna be the Wild West, smoky room.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Frank, it's gonna be a smoky room. Maybe some deals.
By the time Rick Comley was at Northern Michigan and MSC was still doing the selection show out of the basement of the CCO building, literally. And well, no, maybe not literally, but it was a very, very small studio. And they were just then starting to do the mathematics on it. And I kind of saw Comley as a bit of a push in that direction, certainly embraced it anyway. And so I don't remember the backdoor Badgers. I was not in college hockey at that time. Was that 80?
Oh boy, you're going back too far for me.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think they had lost regular season, or did not win the regular season. Did not win the tournament, and then magically showed up in the NCAA's, and so they called them the backdoor Badgers or something like that. Anyway, so I don't remember the smoky rooms and all.
One thing that the pairwise has done is
how about 2 WCHA teams?
Minnesota State's making a very strong case this year that they deserve to be in, regardless of what happens in their tournament. And there could be another team. Is Bemidji or Michigan Tech even? Because if you look at the pairwise in their league, as I was just going to pull up, I think Michigan Tech has the 2nd pairwise spot. Bowling Green's 3rd. So we'll see what happens there.
Where's Bemidji?
I think they're fourth.
Wow. And they're the one who keeps showing up in the polls.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they've played a really weird schedule.
Well, they played Mankato enough times to boost whatever
Yeah.
strength of schedule they might have. Huh. Hey, I missed that news conference or whatever it was, or news release that Mazzocco was talking about. Do we have a fourth region yet?
They say it's going to be announced in the upcoming days, not weeks, but they have another site and it's going to be out east. They want to try to put teams on buses if they can to get to their regional site rather than force plane travel and quarantine issues. So they are going to announce a site out east.
There is going to be plane travel. I mean,
there's going to be some, but they're going to try to reduce it as much as they can.
Who's going to go to Loveland? Denver's not right now. CC's not going to go. Loveland, Colorado is going to be a flight for quite a few teams. In fact, most of the teams. Anyone going to Loveland, it's going to be a flight.
Omaha might be able to, but
yeah, that's risky at that time of year though, because you never know when you can get a blizzard in that open area between Omaha and Denver. Whew.
And by the way, Bemidji's actually behind Lake Superior State too in the pairwise. So they're not fourth or fifth.
They need to start winning.
They got to win some games.
What's your source? Where are you?
USCHO and some fancy Excel VLOOKUP tables that I put as. I was kind of looking at the different. Nerd. I was looking at the cratch. I was looking at the strength and schedule as much as you can because I'm just interested to see how it's going to sort out because I feel like there's going to be some rationale for how they pick the teams, but it's just going to be like lies and statistics. It's like we picked this team because their cratch was really good or their strength of schedule was really good.
Where's AIC in your crystal ball?
AIC is the second team in Atlantic. Canisius has the top pairwise. And Canisius has a much stronger strength of schedule. So the teams that they have played are ahead of AIC's. But I just don't see AIC getting two teams because their pairwise is out of whack so much because they just play each other and it's a real top-heavy conference. Like the top teams are dominating that league.
Well, how about this weekend, guys? Michigan State coming into town. We were kind of hoping that Michigan State would start improving, but it's just not improving yet, Viggs. They're at the bottom.
They're at the bottom. They've had a little bit of a talent departure, a little brain drain on that team. Mm-hmm. They've got a strong goalie with DeRitter, who's basically keeping them in hockey games, but they just don't have the offense that we've seen the last couple of years for them to really rise up above water and be dangerous. And so this is a kind of a trap weekend, I think, for Minnesota, coming off their high of playing such perfect hockey against Notre Dame. Michigan State doesn't have that same kind of bark and bite, but they still have to keep progressing because this team, I don't think, can afford to take the foot off the gas too much in this kind of weekend because they could just create all kinds of problems for themselves again if they don't stay focused.
One thing
I don't think we'll see that though.
One thing I've noticed this year though, Frank, is that Minnesota is pretty much they're undefeated against the lower echelon teams. At least maybe they think they're going to be lower echelon, but they're undefeated against those teams. They don't. I mean, in the past we'd see they'd lose to a last place team out of nowhere. This year we're seeing that they are typically losing to much better teams, not the lower end teams like we've seen in the past.
Well, we've had some of the lower end here on the ocean. And can we call it a bandy rink? Anyway, on the big sea. And this team has got the speed to kill you on that rink. I mean, it's amazing. Arizona State worked as hard as they did for as undermanned as they were and as sick as they were to compete as hard as they did. And they still got shellacked, but it was anyway. So, okay, yeah, but I'll go more with what Deeg is thinking. Can't let up here. I mean, you got to take these guys as seriously, until you get yourself a big lead. you gotta go after these guys. You gotta gnaw at their ankles, and you gotta make them pay. Otherwise, it's not like the NHL where in 2 or 3 days you're going to come back and have another game and get yourself back in stride. You're gonna have to wait a week to get back to the game you want to play. So I say you got to go after these guys.
And I think you almost have to come into the weekend with that conservative mindset of we want to get on the forecheck and stick with that game rather than possess the puck like they did against Arizona State and Ohio State, because I think they got used to being able to get away with that. Right. And the space is probably going to be there on the big rink for them to play that style. I'm curious to see if they're able to stick with the forechecking game that Bob wants them to play against a team where they could probably get away with more possession, skill on the rush. So that's kind of what I'll be watching for this weekend.
I'm thinking this team's coming together pretty well. I'm thinking it's going to be 4-1, 5-1 type games this weekend. Anything less than a sweep, and I am really disappointed. They need they need the full 6 points. But they can't be looking ahead. Obviously, we know that the House of Horrors is next weekend. So they need to take care of business this weekend. Yes, Penn State's not as good this year. But they didn't get to solve that problem like they did, or they didn't get to solve that last year. Played well. We're heading out there, and then the season gets shut down. So hopefully they're not looking ahead to Penn State, because Michigan State can still sneak in there and get a win, Viggs.
Yeah, I think this team will be looking at this series. I just hope that they play the right style. I see 6 points coming out of it. Michigan State doesn't have the firepower to keep up with Minnesota if it does start to get into one of those scoring kinds of games. I'm just looking more for that style of play, that they stick to what was successful against Notre Dame, because that's going to be the way they're going to have to go forward. Mm-hmm. And also when they go to Penn State, there's going to be more of a forecheck to release pressure against. Penn State plays more aggressive. So you're going to have players continue to get deep to start the breakout, and you're going to have players support the puck. You can't get in a situation where you get into that 40, 50 foot pass game. Mm-hmm. That's just a bad habit that they will be able to probably execute against a team like Michigan State, but they just shouldn't.
Well, they're not going to be able to do it the weekend after Penn State either, when Michigan comes here.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be a fun finish. I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
Tim Hapke with a couple of points. He bet Mo gets a start Saturday this week. It might be the last time to get Mo in, so maybe it's this weekend. And then he's like, he would love to see Brodzinski score a goal again.
In his lifetime or this year?
Okay, Viggs. Mo, do you think Mo should get in at least one game, maybe the Saturday game? If this may be the last chance.
I don't think he gets a game. I think this is Jack's team. I think Bob's made that pretty clear.
Okay.
He's even taken some pot shots at Mo, blaming him for soft goals, which you don't usually see out of a coach. Yeah. He's got a lot of confidence in Jack, and the team has a lot of confidence in Jack. I think you'll see him in that all the way down the stretch, unless the team gives up like they did against Wisconsin and he just wants to save them the energy.
Yeah, that's a little different. But so we all think it's sweep this weekend?
Better. No, I'd be disappointed, with you. Yeah.
Let's get it going.
Michigan State has their power, and if they do, I don't know how they're going to get past LaFontaine. And the Gophers have got the firepower that should have an easy time 5-on-5, relatively. There's no Hirose line to worry about anymore, right?
We were killed by his line.
Yeah.
They were. Yeah. That was the only reason they were good the last couple of years, honestly. And so we'll have to wait and see. Well, Frank, you're now back into the lead with your 9th podcast.
Yeah. More than Micheletti?
Mick's been on one show.
He's a piker.
But Todd Molesky had just tied you last week with 8 appearances. And he's on twice a year now because, obviously we play the Badgers twice. So he's going to pass you up here soon. Sorry. But you're our longest tenured guest. Show number 2, and this is 188. Yeah. But we thank you for coming on, Frank.
You're welcome. When was the first year? Just so I can.
10 years ago. 10. So it was 2000, fall of 2010.
And you put me on and I was on the bench? I was.
Oh, boy. You were not on the bench.
Yeah, I was.
I don't think so. Were you?
Yeah, well, hello. I do remember the pink slip.
Yeah, well, I'll check that in overtime.
Check that.
I'll check that in overtime.
Okay.
Well, I'm trying to wrap up the show here, Frank. Let me produce the show, and we'll do that in overtime.
I'm tired of producers.
We'll get into that in overtime as well. Viggs, you got any last wishes here?
Just look forward to this weekend. Stay out of the box on those offensive zone penalties, Gophers. Your coach doesn't like it. I know that the stick might come out for players who do that. We've seen that with a couple guys like Brodzinski who've been read the riot act about taking penalties in 200 feet from their own net. That's something that could make this weekend more difficult than it needs to be. And when their top 4 penalty killers are the guys who are taking those penalties like Nelson, Myers, Walker, McLaughlin, it hurts their penalty kill. So that's the only way they can get themselves in trouble this weekend.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this podcast this week. We want to thank Frank Mazzocco again for joining us for his 9th time on the podcast. It's always great to have him here. We'll be back next week to recap of this series with MSU and preview the series with Penn State. We'll have to see how that goes. I'm looking forward to it. For those of you currently watching live, we'll have a bit of overtime coming up next. For the rest of you, stay tuned. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. You are correct, Frank. It was September 2011, so it's our 10th season. It was September of 2011. You were about to make your return to radio because you had that year. You took the year off from everything.
Was on the bench.
You were about to come off the bench. That's why we had you.
You're on deck. You're on deck.
Yeah. The actual podcast was October 11th, 2011.
Okay.
Good times. All right. We got the individual thing on here, Viggs. You got your beverage?
Got my beverage. Fan favorite, Steel Toe, size 7, India Pale Ale, St. Louis Park, Minnesota. One of my favorites. It won in the Twitter poll that I now like to do to pick what I'm going to drink. Let's see, 27 votes. And it won with 40.7% of the vote.
Ooh. Interesting.
Just great. West Coast, piney, Northwest Coast, piney IPA.
Can you guys see my Twitter screen? This is why no more composite sticks. If you could see this screen, he wants to redirect a puck from Connor McDavid, and his stick just snaps in half on a redirect.
It's probably already broken.
Yeah.
And you know what? A wood stick's not going to break like that. Even if the wood is starting to go, you'd be able to get something on that. You'd be able to get wood on it. But there you go. Composite stick. It was sure he's going to already break, but he was probably leaning on a little bit. But look at that. Wow. That's the fun thing about Zoom now. We can just share video like that.
Frank,
so Frankie,
what are you pouring for overtime?
Thought you'd never ask. I was getting a little thirsty here. I had to go back to my
What is it?
Oh.
Whoa. Wait, here, let me go full size and so people can see this. Say something, Frank.
say something.
Yeah, introduce your beverage.
This is the Dimple Pinch, a 15-year blend. So I'm not that snooty. Fine old original. Do I have to do this?
Yeah, you got to hold up. This is advertising. It's your next career.
Could be QVC, right? And I got it when I went to my favorite Comcast office. And I walked in the door and I said, I'm paying too much for cable. You've got to knock $50 off my bill a month. And he said, I can do that. And I'm thinking, you do it a month ago, a year ago. Anyway, and then we chatted. And
I'm
chatted.
Frank Mazzocco. Don't you know who I am? I want my cable cheaper.
That's all I said. I said, I want $50 knocked off. He said, well, then, then I had to have the phone and the security thing, but the price went down. So, and then we got talking about, I don't know how we got onto this, but he recommended it and he cut my bill by $50 a month for 2 years anyway. And so it's been my go-to scotch.
Wow.
And I haven't had much lately. It's getting late. But in honor of the program and to share with you guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I thought about getting out my J. Carver, but I was doing some painting in the kitchen and I moved my shelf and I would have to go move stuff just to get to my bottles. Because I took tomorrow off even.
It's a hard life.
I know. I could get some wine though, if I wanted to. Oh boy.
What are you drinking?
Just water for me.
Oh, okay. I thought beverages were required.
Well,
They kind of are, but Jupe's breaking his own rules here.
Okay.
I do it every week, and I've had enough drunk broadcasts. Oh well, one in particular, years ago. We since there's no TV for Anchorage, we decided to just do a live audio broadcast during one of the Anchorage games, while we kind of watched it on the Anchorage video stream, which was way ahead of its time. They were doing video long before any of the schools were. And I went through almost an entire bottle of gin that night. Oh yeah. I wish I had that recording somewhere. But we were just talking about the game and we were drinking, we were having people on. We had
So were you video at this time or was this?
we weren't doing video, it was just audio. We were over the Mixler app. And we had some people calling in via Skype. And I remember Mel, who lives in Michigan now, called us from the road. It was almost like a call-in show. We had a bunch of people on. It was just fun. And I just kept drinking and kept drinking and kept drinking. What can you do? I might have to go get some J. Carver. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll be back.
So how's your marinara sauce?
Mine is pretty good. I don't think it's super like unique or anything like that. I just put in the time. I think it's spicy and flavorful. I've made it in bulk for my hockey association's spaghetti fundraiser. And I thought it was pretty good. And I had one woman come up to me and she said, "You put too much fennel in your sauce." I like fennel. I like a good fennel sausage. And that's just the way I do it. I come heavy with the fennel.
Yeah.
And I fennel, red pepper. So that's how I go.
Every Italian family is different. They've got a different, there's a little bit more of this or a lot less than that. And While my mother was she was a very good cook, but liked the simple recipes. I don't even, she had to put garlic in there, but I don't know, so I had one aunt and uncle who used to, like if they were going to do a pork roast or something, or even their sausage, would load it up with garlic. And my mother would just rail on that. So, so we had very simple. I'm trying to remember if she even would let me put onion in there, her recipe. I don't think her recipe even has onion. So anyway, but it's got the pork ribs, bone on, and there's a lot of flavor in there if you can get that going.
Oh yeah.
So we were pretty light on the spices on just about everything we ate, but still tasty.
I've got heavy garlic, heavy oregano, fennel, red pepper, a little bit of thyme, salt, pepper, olive oil. I use beef and pork, and onion. Sometimes I'll put a little red pepper in there, like dice it, fine it up. Sometimes a little celery, carrot in there, a little bit of heavy cream, bay leaf. Do it up. Let it simmer away for a couple hours.
Yep, there's a lot you can do. There's no question. Yeah.
Okay, here you go, boys.
Carver.
It's my J Carver. Simple,
Sure.
local, made about 8 minutes from my house in Waconia. They created a still in an old car dealership in Waconia, and you can go and visit there. They have nights where they do this. Well, not right now, but they bring in food trucks and all that good stuff. So
they just came out with a cask strength single malt offering. So it's like a higher proof, higher flavor. And so now our local distillers are getting to the point where they're having stuff that's been in the barrel for 5, 6, 7 years, where they actually start to taste a little more balanced and not so much of that grain that you can get sometimes. So it's a fun time to be in Minnesota. My buddy who's up in Duluth, we stayed at his place that last time we were up there, and he's got the wall of whiskey.
Oh boy, that was a dangerous night, Biggs.
That was a dangerous night. We were up until about 4:30 sharing little pours at that place. That was
the night. That was the night we tried to go out and eat, and you guys at that brewery, and they didn't have any food, Frank. And that's when you gave me that one face picture where you're going right at me, and Wally's all like smiling. You're like,
just trying to get people some quotes on Twitter before I left the arena, because I knew once I got to a brewery, no more transcription is going to happen there. Yeah. I've gotten a little better at transcribing since then, but it can be a challenge some nights. But yeah, we went back and we hit the shelf a little bit. He just released a premixed cocktail offering that I know you can get in Egan, but otherwise it's exclusive to Duluth. But he's got a company called Duluth Whiskey Project. And that's the latest one from J Carver. So he's got pre-mixed Manhattans and old fashions. Mm-hmm. That's a fun little product from bourbon whiskey he's distilled over the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's the J Carver. I actually like their
got good branding.
They do. I actually like one of their gins is really good too, because their gin is not very piney. I don't like piney stuff. I don't like the gin that tastes like Deepwood's off. And theirs doesn't. So, I mean, they've got a lot of good stuff. Even the barrel gin, it's got some color to it.
How long have they been around?
About 4 years. Makes sense. Yeah.
Good already.
I like it. Yeah, and another thing is, it's just like, I like that it's local too. I mean, it's literally up the road. And I it was fun. On my birthday a few years ago, like they said, I had one of those evenings where you could come. And they have this wonderful food truck and brought in some great food. You could have some drinks. Got to meet the owner. He was telling us that, how expensive it is to start a distillery. It was just outrageous. But yeah, we got to see the whole process and a lot of stuff that was in barrels, like you said. Probably probably that trifecta was in barrels a few years ago, Viggs, just waiting to be used years later.
Yeah, because that trifecta, it's 4 years old at least. And so they maybe have some barrels that are older, but the youngest stuff they have in there is 4 years old. So at that stage, you start to get some, development because whiskey, if you take white whiskey and you taste it, it just burns. It's got that, it almost smells a little bit like cheap tequila. But as it ages and it goes through the wood, it takes out all these bad things and you get these esters and they just turn into delicious brown liquors.
Yeah, and I wasn't even talking about the aging process, about them being young, just the fact that there
New
were
to
a lot
distilling.
just new to the business. And how many flavors did they have up there? How many?
They have
Gin,
quite
brandy.
a few.
I mean, that's.
They even have absinthe.
Well, gin and absinthe and vodka, those are pretty easy to make and put out because there's no aging to it. But when you get into these brown liquors, they start out as white grain spirit. And it takes
Bourbons,
time to
whiskeys.
to
They've got
be delicious.
We've got some brandies here. Apple brandy. They got 2 brandies. They got like 4 or 5 gins.
You got an aquavit.
Yeah.
That's my Norwegian heritage. Even though some people think I'm Italian because Vigo, I'm actually Norwegian.
Sevilla liqueur, everlasting absinthe, 120 proof. So yeah, they've got good stuff. And what's aquavit?
Aquavit is basically like Norwegian gin. So it's a neutral grain spirit that's infused with aquavit flavors instead of gin flavors.
Okay.
So like cardamom is a big one. You get that anise, that licorice kind of taste.
Okay.
So
this is one thing we couldn't do before without the Zoom. Just share screens like this, and you guys can see what I'm looking at. Yeah, I haven't had the brick. No, maybe I have had the Brickyard, but I'm more of the straight bourbon whiskey. That's what I've got right here. That's what I'm drinking tonight. Just the straight up stuff. So
I don't think I've ever had straight bourbon.
well, when this pandemic ends, I will change that for you.
This stage now where I don't mix my drinks very much at all.
So Frank,
I only drink this stuff at home. If you guys noticed all these years when we go out, I might have 1 beer a year. I'm usually drinking water. But when I'm at home, bring it on.
Frank, you got your vaccine yet?
You broke up. Say
no COVID vaccine yet for you?
No.
No.
I'm on the waiting list, and just waiting.
I was just thinking, if there are hints of travel happening, maybe there was hints of vaccinations happening for you.
You guys broadcast with masks on, don't you, at times?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you could tell, but it's actually you guys still sound great. So it's not very obvious. I mean, once in a while you could tell, but I don't know.
The university would frown if we did not have our masks on.
They frown over everything. They just like to frown, period.
They are very cautious with anything COVID.
Yeah.
Like I know the U of M golf course had to jump through many, many hoops of protocols and oversight before they were allowed to open. I think they got held back at least another 5 weeks than other courses in the state, which actually might have been good for them because it gave them some time to green up and get healthy, but they sure missed out on that 5 weeks of revenue.
Yeah.
But they made up for it.
I hinted, but I mean, it's really just a way, might be a fantasy. Wally and I have been talking, what if they open up and we can travel? As clean as maybe clean's not the right word, but as virus free as this team has stayed once the season began and they got off, they got the 3 or 4 guys, whatever it was, done and cured. well healed.
With antibodies.
Antibodies, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would, I'd feel comfortable traveling with them.
Well, I thought it was telling that Bob chose to emphasize that players were getting reinfected as cause to be cautious, which leads me to believe, yes, because he put on the board last week or whatever, and he said, the Wild had this outbreak and players are being reinfected with the virus. They've had it before. We thought that they'd be supplied with antibodies to protect themselves against getting reinfected, and that's turning out maybe it's not the case. And so he asked them to be a little more on guard about distancing and staying out of places where they shouldn't be, and just like, hey, we got 3 more weeks of the season here coming up, conference tournament, and then we're in the dance. So hold it together.
Use your brain.
There. Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to, you could get this virus very easily and not be breaking protocols, but do all you can right now at this point. Did you guys listen to the radio show this week at all?
No.
Did not.
He told Wally this weird story, like kind of out of the blue, where he's like, Tom Brady in the NFL and those locker rooms, they keep all the stuff that they're going through so under wraps. No one has any idea who's got what injury, who's got this surgery pending. And then at the end of the year, all of a sudden you're like, these 4 or 5 guys have to go have this taken care of. But you didn't hear any of that up until the season ended. And he was insinuating that something is happening to his team that they're keeping under wraps and they're battling through. And I'm just like, you just opened up the locker room door and told us that something's going on. I mean, we know that Staudiker and Reedy are dealing with some issues, but obviously it must be more than that.
They're battling. Wasn't it Stucker who outed himself?
Well, Stucker outed himself about COVID.
Yeah.
But I think there's something else going on somewhere with the team where people are battling through things that are more than just those little things. So take it for what's worth. It was an interesting radio show because he also ripped on the Big Ten for their conference tournament. He's saying, we're going to be killing ourselves trying to finish our season, and then we're going to play 3 games in 3 days and then have to go play in a regional somewhere where we might have to quarantine. Look at the NCHC. They're doing their games spread out over, I think, 8 days, maybe 3 games over 8 days, something like that. He's like, why aren't we doing that? So it was an interesting Bob on Monday. I think sometimes he forgets that it's going to be broadcast. Even Wally was a little off guard.
Well, that's a little bit strange because it just seems to me that this year he's been more guarded in the interviews. The last 2 years before we would roll tape on the coaches show, be the coaches segment before a game, we could ask him anything. He would give us an opinion about anything, and there's stuff you use and stuff you wouldn't use, but you're getting some stuff on background at that point, but now we don't have that opportunity. And so before we start taping our the pregame coaches segment is taped by Zoom, recorded by Zoom. So even though you can you can have some eye contact, it goes away in a hurry. I mean, pretty soon, I'm going to demonstrate. Pretty soon he grabs his phone and that's all you see.
That he actually did that on one of the road trips. I think it was the Michigan series where
he's also got like this one where he's just like got this thing going.
The magpie, or what was the scarecrow and maybe that's a 50s cartoon, but
I remember it. The old cartoons were good.
Oh no, they weren't.
Sure they were.
Clutch Cargo was not.
Well, no, I say old cartoons, meaning like if you go back to like Tom and Jerry of the 40s and 50s, politically incorrect, but still the best. You
sure.
can't. I mean, Tom and Jerry now is not even close to the same. So that's all I'm saying.
When I need to pick me up, I go get my Rocky and Bullwinkle DVDs and chuckle at some adult humor. And
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my head.
That's not the best one, though. The best one is when he says, they're in a boat. And he's, Rocky, look at a message in a bottle. No, Rocky says, Bullwinkle, look, a message in a bottle. And Bullwinkle says, fan mail from some flounder.
Oh, jeez.
Fan
mail from some flounder. Oh, boy. We still have 27 people watching this show, Frank. People love their overtime.
Don't they? Do they respond? Can they?
Well, there's a live chat, and
There's a chat going on,
and we could see the messages as they go by. And they were commenting on our drinks, and they're always commenting throughout the show.
I was going to have you ask them, but I suppose I could ask them.
They're
How many watched the pregame show against Wisconsin last Saturday? And what I have no idea. I've gotten zero feedback.
I watched it.
You watch everything, Bees.
I watch everything.
Was it saleable? I mean, was it? I have no. We couldn't even. We didn't have a monitor. I had no idea what it looked like.
Yeah, I think I saw a playback of it a little bit. I didn't see it live because I don't think I was home yet. I was still out doing stuff, and I didn't just trying to get home for the regular game. So I ended up missing it.
I think it's a huge opportunity for them to build in the pregame that some fans passionately want. Like the people who are listening and watching this show would love that before a game, something to focus on and get together. Because I really look forward to when Bob's on with you guys, because he gives some insights to you, some background type stuff about what's going to happen during the weekend that he would not give on a Wednesday.
Right.
And so I think it's valuable from that standpoint. And I think the alumni have been fun this year to have the different ones. I enjoy listening to those guys.
Listening to Casey Hankinson fess up to that terrible jersey was awesome. That was just
somewhere at the on one of the U websites, and I don't know if it's how it's been posted or not, but I did an interview with all three of the boys.
Really?
Has that circulated much
I have to look
anywhere?
I haven't seen it yet, and I'm usually pretty hip to that stuff.
Yeah, see, I don't know if it was supposed to come out of U Relations or the athletic department rather than the hockey department. Anyway, we went. How long did it go? It was supposed to go 10 minutes. We went 20. I could have gone an hour. Boy, I wish I could have a link to send to the 27 people who are watching. It was, I've asked for the video of it because it's going to be a keepsake interview. I mean, it was just that much fun with those guys. I mean, it was really, really cool. So it's out there. It's a Zoom interview. Like I said, I don't know if it's on gophersports.com.
They'll probably put it out at some point. Usually they kind of wait and then they spread these things out. But who knows when?
2 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah. I was their father just passed away at the end of last year, didn't they? Didn't he?
December, yeah.
Yeah. And my mother went to high school with him. She's known him pretty much all her life because he was an original, like a 1960 Edina grad, the original Edina high school, or somewhere around there. So my mother, went to school with him either a year older or younger or something like that. But
great.
I found the Casey Hankinson interview, but I haven't seen the other ones. And they have the pregame show on the Facebook page as well.
Yeah, they do have that.
Facebook page, is it the athletic department or the
Minnesota men's hockey?
Okay. Well, good. I'll watch it some night when I want to put myself to sleep.
Oh, jeez. Oh, Frank, what are we going to do with you?
Because we ran video of the Ehrman goal and the Kessel goal and the Nate Schmidt goal.
Oh, all good stuff. But what makes the Kessel go better is when somebody mixed it with the audio from the radio.
Which we did.
Well, obviously, take that, you stinking Badgers. I mean, Glenn, what a treasure. you know, you had the Wooger on TV, but Wooger never swore or anything. But Glenn would every once in a while drop something, and it's like, thank goodness, they were pretty lenient on him because I'll never forget one time listening. He's like, they gave up a goal. It might have been against Vermont or something. He's like, shit. I mean, just right them. I'm like going, oh my gosh. The Wooger had his Woogisms, but he was still good. He was still disciplined not to say something that bad on the air, like drop an S-bomb. But Glenn had no trouble dropping an S-bomb. And you just know he would never hear about it, but Wally's like, oh shit, I want to hear about this one now.
I don't remember who Glenn was doing radio with. Probably was before Wally. It was September. Season hadn't started yet. And for some reason, I was going to Mariucci Arena. I don't know, meeting, whatever. And as I'm pulling up the little media parking pods, Glenn's walking out and he's carrying a stack of books, like you used to carry when you were in college and you had to walk before backpacks. And so as I'm parking, I roll down my window and I say, Glenn, what are you doing here so early? It's only September. And I say, you guys doing some interviews now or whatever? He says, oh, no. He says, I'm just here for doing a little Bible study with the boys, which, just goes to show you hang around this world long enough, you never know what the fuck's going to happen.
Dan Terhar, but it might have been Terhar calling the games back then.
Oh, God. And then he said, I suppose I better not be saying that kind of stuff.
Yeah, 14 Stu 14 says it was Dan Terhar. Because remember, Terhar was before Wally. Maybe Terhar was on the AM 1500 when they were on there.
Yes,
yeah, I think that's right.
Because they had good show. They had good production. Because I remember it was like Eric Gislason was doing kind of like
right
in between periods, and he would give them a break.
He was on the concourse at Mariucci.
Mm-hmm.
Their intermissions came from the concourse of Mariucci. Yeah, they would. Hey, it was a Hubbard station. You talk about hockey people.
Yeah,
Hubbard's
they did. AM 1500 was good stuff. I thought when they were broadcasting back then. I've told this story in the past. I was visiting a relative in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. I picked up a playoff North Star game. AM 1500 in Oklahoma at 9 p.m. at night. It was very staticky, obviously, but I could hear Al Shaver calling the game.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't get 1500 from anywhere, but sometimes at night, the way it bounces off, you can get it from really far away.
They are really directional.
Yes.
I've heard they've got a direction pattern that's kind of like this.
Yep.
And and by the time you get further out,
I used to listen to KFN on the way driving home, and I would, it was before the new 212 was built. I would stop at the intersection of 212 and 41 in downtown Chaska. And if KFN had gone off the air, if they had, sun up, sun down, if the sun was down, I was picking up Baton Rouge 1130 because they're the boomer station. They have the clear channel for that at night. So it's just amazing how AM radio goes so far. But you think about the technology. We're streaming right here. Our live stream is about 15 to 20 seconds behind, which is amazing. I really wish I don't know if it's Learfield, the radio stations. So sometimes it's a minute and a half behind, and I just don't understand how that could be possible these days. We broadcast from my freaking little laptop here. Yeah, our audio was 10 to 15 seconds behind when we did it. Now our video is 15 to 20 seconds behind. Yet a stream, big radio station, big juggernauts can't get a stream to go quicker. It's frustrating.
Well, when I do the mute TV thing on Wild Games, I do that once in a while. Usually when Kevin Fallness encourages me to.
It works, huh?
At times. The NHL app is probably, I gotta make sure I get my forward and backward straight here. The NHL app is only about 20 to 30 seconds behind TV.
Really?
The KFan, the iHeart app, is anywhere from 30 to 90 seconds behind. I mean, it's like, what?
I've noticed the direct link from the U, because the U does kind of put out a link with video, is a little better. But not a ton, because you guys are sending it out to, aren't you sending it to Missouri and back or something along those lines? Because
to Missouri, and then we think up on the satellite, but we're not sure.
Yeah. Was it Learfield? What now? It's Learfield IMG.
Learfield IMG College.
IMG College. Oh, boy. That's a mouthful. I felt sorry for you guys ever since they started. I felt sorry ever since you guys have started having to do that. It's like all of a sudden, Learfield was fine. Here's messages from Learfield, quick. Messages from Learfield IMG, the whole thing. It's like shorten it up, gang.
How would you like
We love that you're producing, but shorten it up a bit.
How'd you like to do the Bally Sports Network or whatever that's going to be?
Oh, we've talked about that a little bit. How is somebody like a Dick Bramer going to feel about having to push gambling during a broadcast?
That's a very interesting question. I mean, Dick.
Well, Sinclair put themselves in a bad spot. They bought They bought the Fox networks for a premium, and then they thought they could come in and they thought they could get rebroadcast rights and still, get the kind of rates that either Fox or Disney was getting there. People are like, no, we're not paying you for this. And soon's going to come up that, the Wild broadcast rights are going to come up. The Twins broadcast rights are going to come up. They're not going to want to pay as much, or they're not going to. It's just I think
their own stuff.
I think regional networks are in trouble with the next kind of round of sports. I mean, it is amazing how many people complain about TV these days, Frank, especially with Gopher hockey. Now they all hate FSN because most people say, I can't stream it. I can't see it anymore.
Isn't it on the Big Ten app every game?
It is.
Yep. Yes.
That's how I get it.
Yeah.
But you could premium, right? I mean, what?
Yeah, it's like $10 a month or something, isn't it, Viggs?
Right. For just getting the University of Minnesota, it's like $10 a month.
That's
easy.
Nothing.
Easy for me.
So you don't need to have FSN. You don't need
I didn't
to
know
have.
You could just get one school. I thought you had to buy the whole.
Well, you can get one school. It's more if you get the whole league. So, like, if I wanted to watch the Michigan-Wisconsin series, it was on Big Ten Network, and it's on my streaming for YouTube TV. But if I didn't have YouTube TV and I just had my Minnesota subscription, I couldn't get it. I could pay more and get it, but.
I was talking over you guys. I'm sorry. It's freezing up here every once in a while, every 5 minutes or so. Is that me or is that you? I mean,
you froze up a little bit during the podcast for a short time, but otherwise the audio came through. The only audio, a little jitter once time. It wasn't bad at all. So you're good. No worries. Have you had a chance to watch Charlie Beatty?
Yes.
I know you did. I know you did at first, because I remember when I'm driving home during the state hockey tournament, and I'm getting a text from you saying, "Who is this guy calling games?" Because McLeod got booted, and Charlie had to come in and call this guy. You're like, "This guy's. I like this guy," and then we kind of the internet kind of pushed that he take over for Gopher Hockey, because, to be honest, Gopher Hockey needed to start fresh on TV and go young. And I thought he was a great. I think Charlie is a great choice. He's good. He's young. He could kind of build it. Obviously, this season's a little different because nobody's traveling, and Anthony can call whatever game he wants. It'll be a little different this weekend, but I like Charlie. I think it's a fresh. It's fresh. And
Charlie's good. He's smart. He's personable. I would become the president of his fan club if I was not getting out of that business. Once Eric Shearhorn left, anyway, no, I really like Charlie a lot. I mean, the key, we'll bump into him almost every game.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, like now, he will come all the way over to the radio deck and we just chat. We just BS. And it's a two-way conversation. It's not, here's what I know, or here's what I, I really like Charlie. So I would,
well, we love I love that they went that direction, and it's all because of a fluke. And you think about it,
right.
They were he was working the bench at the high school hockey tournament, and he was just filling in for somebody who was sick. And then all of a sudden McLeod says, "Oh, I don't remember what he said." And then Charlie Beatty's on the air, and all of a sudden things are up for him. So I can't wait to get back to normal on TV. So it's more Charlie, because I like
Gopher
watching
Hockey
Charlie.
Needs that. They need, I said this about Doug, and I think I probably said it to you guys, but one of the biggest advantages Don Lucia had was that Doug Woog stuck around, and after, Craig, you might know better, if it was 2 years after he left coaching that he got the full-time analyst thing. I know there was the first year he didn't do it. And the second year,
I think it was a little later after coaching, because Tom left when he went to the Wild. The Wild started in what year? 2000.
2000.
And Wooger was done at 98 or something like that. So, and then you had Reed Larson for a year.
Was that a whole year though?
He was there.
I don't think he made it.
He made
it.
He was there the whole year, but like halfway through the year, you started bringing in the Wooger as a third person in the booth.
Yeah.
And then the next season might have been 99, or it might have been 2001 or something like that. That the Wooger took over full time for Reed Larson.
One of the biggest advantages Lucia had was that Doug was on TV, and Doug became the face of Minnesota hockey, of Gopher hockey, that Don really never wanted. He did not want that part of the job. And so Doug was there every Friday, every Saturday, pitching the team. And that's what that telecast needs. That telecast needs a personal touch, regular, committed, identifiable, and they've got to change the bug on the screen. It can't be just college hockey anymore. It's got to
Gopher hockey.
Gopher hockey.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we all know it was huge back in the MSC days and even the Fox days. You guys were getting a full point rating higher than any Wild broadcast or any Timberwolves broadcast at the time.
Yeah.
Obviously, the advertising dollars aren't the same for college hockey, but your ratings, I remember Judd Zulgad used to report those ratings in the newspaper, and you guys were always almost a full point or more than a full point ahead of those broadcasts. And I mean, come on, you're in Fargo.
Well,
Because
yeah,
someone's watching it on TV like everyone was doing back then. You put it on Friday evening or Saturday evening. Gopher hockey was on your TV. And that's why you're in a movie, because it's kind of a cultural reference that's what people did on the weekends. We watched our Gopher hockey because at the time, at the late 90s, there was no Wild. There was nothing else. They were the biggest show in town.
Did you hear the Danny Ehrman interview?
I did not, actually.
I did.
You hear it all. You could listen to every pregame.
I put a link to it, I think, in the YouTube chat
Mm-hmm.
for anybody who wants to watch it later.
The Ehrman interview or the Ehrman goal?
From the Wisconsin pregame.
Yeah.
That was the Ehrman interview. And he talks about growing up.
Bingo, exactly. My question was, so how did you get, when did the recruiting process start? When did you get, when did the Gophers come on your radar? And he said it was the only team that was ever on my radar because I grew up watching MSC and it was Gopher hockey. I had no connection with North Dakota. He said, we didn't get their games. So, and I remember Mike Gensel, Fox had been on, or MSC had been on for a number of years. And Gensel came back from a recruiting trip and he started, I don't want to say preaching, but he started telling people, and then it finally told us, we don't realize how big. I think it might have been MSC at the time. He says, we don't realize how big this is. He says, I go recruiting. And if I'm out on the weekend, like I went into the Grand Rapids rink and in the lobby, there's 3 TVs on with the Gopher game on Friday night and everybody's standing around watching MSC. I mean, it's just, or maybe it might've been a Saturday, but the point is that he said, that's a great recruiting tool for us and we don't appreciate it. We don't realize it.
And the funny thing is, I have a lot of friends who are not into hockey, definitely not into college hockey, but they'll be out on a Friday night and they will text me or message me or something on Facebook and say, I just saw you on the Gopher broadcast between the benches. They'd see me on TV. We were at the bar and we all saw you on TV because that's what they're watching at the bar.
Mm-hmm.
And that obviously was the glory days, 2007 or whatever and on, but it's just not quite the same anymore.
No, it's not, but
we still love it.
We'll always have Paris.
I remember Gensel shared that story with me a lot of the times too, because a lot of times assistant coaches not always on the road with the team. They take some weekends off to go recruit, and he's like, they're on in every rink.
Yep,
watching us.
Does he take the St. Thomas job?
I hear Grant Patolny might be the front runner. Interesting decision there, but we'll see.
He wants to get out of Marquette because that team is not very good.
Freezing up.
You're not freezing to us. Maybe we're freezing.
I missed that whole deal. Well, yeah, Craig, every time you start moving around and dancing and jumping around, it freezes up. I can't. Wait a minute. Is there a way I can check to see which? Hey. Is there a way I can check which Wi-Fi I'm on without disconnecting? Can I double tap my button here?
I do whatever. You can always come. You can always connect back in too. It's all good.
I'll come back. All right, so I'm not gonna.
And that's a fine picture of a puck. Yeah, I don't know about Grant Patolny coming.
Yeah, I thought Scott Bell would be a better choice for them. I think he's a hungrier recruiter than Grant, because I think that's one of the reasons why Grant sort of had some issues at Minnesota, is he just wasn't recruiting at the top level.
Mm-hmm.
We can rehash Brock Besser as much as we want, but Grant thought he was going to be a Gopher, and then he became a Fighting Hawk.
A Fighting Hawk. That's still weird still.
Yep. And now Frank's muted, so he's doing all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah, now he's really frozen.
Yeah, I tweeted out the Facebook link to the Badger Gopher pregame on Facebook because apparently I'm not a mod in the chat, Jupe, so I can't post links.
Can you post any? Can you? Well, let me see.
I don't know.
Hold on.
Make me a mod. Give me the wrench.
Hold on.
I don't know if I need that kind of power, but
Add moderator. Pico is now a moderator for the channel. It says.
All right. Once my computer finishes restarting, I got a required restart from my University of Minnesota laptop.
Ooh, that could be a long restart.
No, it should be okay.
And now we lost you, Viggs. Your video's gone. Oh, there you're back.
Tech issues. We hit 11:30. Things start getting weird. I feel like I need a second pour now. Man.
My ice is going down quickly here.
Yeah. I know. Is this a 2
But
pour?
I took the next 2 days off, so I can do whatever I want.
My kids are back in school tomorrow again, so I feel like it's almost like a day off. I just spent a 5-day weekend in the polar vortex of 20 below, or they just wanted to go to hockey practice and get back in the house.
Yeah.
And get back to an iPad. So I felt like once I got out of that, I was like, oh, I feel way more relaxed.
See, we've been doing a brand relaunch for our company. So our company was owned by another company. Now we're all becoming one brand new company name. And I've just been working way too much. I'm like, you know what? I'm taking, we launched on Monday. I've been still doing stuff all week. I'm like, I'm taking the rest of the week off.
Yeah. My coworkers were asking me on Tuesday, how's your vacation? I was like, well, it's
even with young kids, it's never a real vacation.
No, it's a lot of work. We had fun. Played a lot of. My son is really into Stratomatic baseball and Stratomatic football. Do you have any idea what that is?
I want to say you mentioned this at a previous overtime, and I can't. It's like some high-end statistics.
It's basically,
yeah.
It's like statistics are used to put together a player card, and then you roll dice to get results. Mm-hmm. And he is into it. Like
Frank is back.
He is all about Stratomatic. And so we had to play some Stratomatic baseball. We drafted all-star teams. We did a series there. And we recreated the Super Bowl as well with Stratomatic football. And the football game does take about 2 hours to play. And it's a lot of dice rolling. And he makes substitutions. He goes hurry up. He, goes to special clock rules at the end of the half. He's into it.
Wow. So, Frank, we're thinking maybe towards the end of the season here, we might have I don't know if we'll do a podcast. I think we should have just a broadcast overtime with you and all of our other guests this year. We're just going to talk hockey.
Our selection show breakdown.
That would be good.
When there's a tournament bracket to talk about.
Oh boy. Yeah. Because Cappy would come on. You've met Paul Capanigri there, Frank?
No. I still don't even know. Capanigri?
Paul Capanigri. He played at Ohio State. He's been
From
doing
Illinois.
Big Ten stuff. He's been doing Big Ten stuff for a while.
I've just never learned how to pronounce his name.
Capanigri, Cappy.
He's a really nice guy. Does a lot for us.
And then Todd Molesky. We'll have to get Todd on. We've had some long overtimes with him as well because there's just. Oh, boy. I miss this though, Frank. I miss our nights at Maxwell's until 1 a.m.
Yeah.
And just sitting around watching the games. And Jim's not watching. I still miss Campus Pizza. I miss my spicy special. As long as it didn't slide off. One of Frank's things. Back some of those times we had, we'd be at Campus Pizza, and I remember I want to say Fairchild came in with somebody, and they were doing the rebroadcast of the Gopher game. And they were just ripping on John Hill. I mean, just ripping on him. I'm like, oh, look at him. He looks all, because, John Hill, when he would do his interview, he'd come and go. He'd kind of have his nose up and like high and it just came off as very high and mighty. And they were just kind of ripping him for it. I'm like, oh, boy, that's not a good sign. Not a good sign.
I remember my favorite John Hill story was I was at a section final day at the Bloomington Ice Gardens. And I really enjoyed that day there, or maybe it's section quarters or semis or something like that.
Probably quarters.
Probably quarters. So big games. I was excited to be there. And I see, I think it had to be, was it Hastings maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Hastings on staff. He was walking back with like a cup of ramen from the concession stand to a spot in the stands. And in the spot in the stands.
Uh-oh.
Props.
I see someone who is sitting there with a jacket over their head. Like this. Just sitting there in the arena, going around the rink.
Oh,
and like this.
No, it's
and
not.
Hastings comes over and comes out from the hoodie, grabs the ramen, and back under the hoodie.
Was he like sick or something?
I think he might have been hungover or something. And he needed some ramen before. I think it was the next game was going to be like Holy Angels and Rosemount back when JT Brown was playing for them.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So this is around that era. And I just remembered going, must be a tough night. Even I knew at that time what that meant.
Well, you have props. I got to show you some of the props I have here that I know Frank would appreciate. Who could forget this fabulous photo signed by one Frank Mazzocco? And I put this out on Twitter once in a while because it's so good. You must have had a bunch of these extras because you were you had a bunch of these because you were signing these at your retirement party. Remember back at Tom Reed's back in 2010?
No, I didn't bring them there. You brought them.
No, I didn't bring them there. You had like a stack of these, and you were like, "Here we go."
No, I didn't do that. Did I?
I never had one. You had them there, and you signed this for me. I didn't have one before.
Wow, I don't remember that.
Treasure.
Big time.
This is a treasure.
Can you hold it up so people could read it?
Well, it says to Craig, your friend, Frank Mazzocco. Look at that.
Oh, that's not the one I was thinking about.
No, this is you had a bunch of extras and you brought it to like that retirement thing just for fun.
I signed one for you.
And you signed one for me. This is why it's priceless.
I signed another one, and I thought you had two of them.
No, I only have. This is just the only one I have. How about that?
I signed one, and I thought I gave it to you that said, "R.I.P." He called his last 6 games against North Dakota. And I thought that's why you brought this up earlier today, because I thought that was on the picture I gave you.
No, not this is the only one. Just to Craig, your friend, Frank Mazzocco.
Maybe someone had too much gin that night and it's lost somewhere in a box.
Could be. Wonder who I gave that to.
Shep was plastered that night. Papa Shep had a good time at your party at Tom Reed's that night.
I don't think I'm not even sure I had a drink that night.
I didn't.
I don't think I did till I left, till I was about to go home, and then I had a ride. But
it was a who's who of that party.
It
was a lot of fun people there. I still have the video. I think I put it on Facebook years ago of you when you told the story about the, just east of the urinals story. I still have the audio for that. I'm so glad I was recording those games back then to capture that audio.
Fun when they had the World Juniors out there, right?
Hard to get back.
Hard to get back. They don't make them like they used to. Those urinals were huge.
You know, I tell that story often, and it usually gets a blank look.
Now, this is my pride and joy. Me and the Wooger.
Oh, yeah.
That was taken at Sugars after the Gophers sweep North Dakota. 2004, 2005, sometime up. It was up in North Dakota. They swept North Dakota, and he took that picture with me at Sugars. North Dakota is one of the places you didn't go out because they just were all over you, Frank. But the Wooger would go out.
I used to go out once, yeah, till it got to a point, and then I said, you know what? This is not good for my health. I think my last trip there, was it my last trip?
I don't know.
I think so. I think
Well, you would have had to go there you went there for radio at least. You were going there for radio.
yeah, but right. But at that time, then we stayed with the team in that Canada Inn, whatever that badly named hotel is.
I'm not sure.
It's where there's that sports bar with the staff in.
I have to be right back.
And
Uh-oh.
yeah. Anyway, so my last trip there, I think it was all right. So it would have been my last TV trip there. I called the station and I said, I'm making my own hotel reservations.
Oh, geez.
I'm not staying. Nobody's going to know where I'm staying.
I don't blame you.
I continued to stay at that Holiday Inn, which was just became a snake pit. It was just off. The team left there. Lucia took the team out of there.
Mm-hmm.
But
you must have been there that year that the Wooger was there, because the Wooger just came down to Sugars. We were at a hotel just down the street, and we just walked down to Sugars, where I think there was a bunch of, there was a bunch of parents there. Like the Patolnis were there, the Ermins were there. I remember that weekend we went there. The Patolnis had a pregame party at their house in Grand Forks, and we went there, and she's like, "Oh, I know who you are." I'm like, "How would you know me?" They're like, come on in. We'll go show you. Well, here's Grant's bedroom. Grandma's staying in here right now. Here's the game-winning puck. Here's all his jerseys lined up. They're like, Mom wanted to show us everything. But the cool thing with the Patolni house is that there was a picture I took of him and Danny Ehrman on the ice during warmups that was sitting on their TV.
awesome.
So it was a picture I took, was in the Patolni house at the time. I go into their house and I see, I took that picture. And at that point, I'm like, I don't care if they took it off the internet. I'm like, it's cool that it's in the Patolni living room because it's them and Danny, his best friend at the time.
Yeah. God, if I were you, I'd take that picture. I'd have them both sign it and frame it and hang it.
I was a big fan of Danny Ehrman because back then he would help us out. He would do blog posts on my website and do questionnaires and answer questions to the fans. I think we even had Blake Wheeler even did some of that back in the day. With the players would come on and the players would, blog and just for the fans to check out. Those are the days.
So what was the previous name to GPL?
Well, the site before that was prideonice.com. And that was run by Matt and Kyle Barron. And it was they actually Matt created that site for college class. He was learning coding, HTML. He created that site.
Kind of like Facebook at Harvard or something.
Yeah,
right?
he created that site as an educational experience. he was actually Matt was watching us last week during the show, and we were poking fun at him a little bit. He goes, I'm never listening to you guys again. Uh-oh. Oh, that's what Viggs had to go get.
Oh no.
Wait,
boys.
let me go full screen so they can see it here, Viggs. Hold on. Go ahead, say something, Viggs. You can turn off your mute.
So this is Smoke Wagon bourbon. So it's distilled in Indiana, bottled in Las Vegas area, Nevada. And this is a 13-year-old straight bourbon whiskey.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Look at that. You son of a bitch.
Gorgeous color. It's about 113 proof.
Whoo! Good night, Viggs.
So, just a little.
Distance learning is going to suffer tomorrow. I got a feeling.
They're in person tomorrow. They're in person. So,
Oh,
yep.
lucky you.
So I get the data myself to do SQL polls and do some reporting.
I love those sequel pulls. Boys, when
I'm after having to do rebranding, I'm sick of any kind of database duplicates. I'm so sick of that stuff right now, Vague. Sorry. Nerd stuff, but that's what I'm taking tomorrow on the next day off.
Brent and Steve, I know people.
Yeah.
I found the answer to my D-base problem.
That's good. No one knew what I was talking about when I brought it up, by the way, Frank. I'm sorry. Didn't have the heart to tell you.
I didn't know how bad it was until I started to do some research to find out what I could. It's my database program that I've had for 25 years that I keep all my game by game stats in.
You never updated to Access? You stuck with D-Base? Isn't that Lotus? Is that Lotus D-Base?
Hey, you're going to listen here. Or you're just going to keep making fun.
Foxborough.
I wrote a course training for D-Base 4. So I got what do they call it? Promotional copy from Ashton Tate. $500 program. It's, I wrote the program and so it's mine. So I just started using it. Well, then I found this computational error that came up with powers of 10. I won't go too deep on this, and I figure, well, I got to find a workaround, or I got to find out what's going on here. Well, then I started doing some reading, and I realized how dissed D-Base got. I mean, people just panned it right with the version that I started teaching with. It was like downhill to bankruptcy. So somebody got the open source code and they freshened up a DOS version of it to get the bugs, but it's stable. It's no longer supported. They're not going to do any fixes or any bugs. And so it cost me $100, but at least it can multiply by 10 now.
So here's a backstory for a lot of people. I know that in the past you were a technical writer, weren't you?
I was.
I know this because my now ex-wife said she met you one time.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
You met my ex-wife, Suzanne. You met her. You were going to be interviewed for something at Data Card in Opus. Yep. She was having her interview that same day. She's like, aren't you Frank Mazzocco? My husband watches you and all this. She actually met you and you were there for some technical writing that you were doing.
Yep. I can't remember. I obviously didn't get
probably
it.
Like 98-ish, 99.
I think it was a gig, freelance. Boy, I can't remember. And I was working for an agency then.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if they sent me there or if if it was 98, 99, I might have been looking for work because
maybe
MSC was coming in and the Gophers were going off of Channel 29. And McLeod was doing games on MSC.
Really?
Yeah. So there was another year or so in there that I was on the bench.
Gosh, I don't remember that at all. If that's around 98, though, that's when it was really bad. It was the end of the Wooger years. The teams weren't very good.
Yeah.
Maybe nobody noticed you weren't calling games.
It's somewhere around there. I don't remember. I have to go look at my income tax returns if I still have them. But yeah. So no, I did, but I did a lot of. I can't remember. Starting to come to an end around then, but I worked inside Super Value as a contractor on some of their mainframe stuff.
Oh my gosh.
No, I didn't do programming. I just did documentation and help.
Yep.
And
well, the technical writing, the writing of stuff, which is not, I've been in the advertising business here for 15 years now. And we've needed technical writers so many times, but our cheap ass owner back then, who's no longer the owner, would just get people out of college. They have no technical writing skills. It's all creative writing. And so you'd have to spend 6 to 9 to 12 months teaching them how to write technical type of white papers, things like that. And we wasted so much time. I'm like, you know what? You keep hiring all these young kids. They don't stay long. If you would just spend a little more money, or actually a little more than that, and get a technical writer, it would be a lot easier on you than having to do this. Because technical writing it's completely different than creative. Completely different.
For sure.
Are we boring you, Viggs?
No, I do a lot of technical writing. So
hopefully there you go.
That's my job. Like my day job is I'm in IT and I support a software implementation from a vendor that has to fit all of our U of M systems. We have a lot of in-house stuff that all the integrations have to work, and we have to do support. We have to implement them. We have to train people. We have to do updates, all that stuff. My journalism prof at St. Olaf College was a technical writer for Microsoft, and she got a lot of stock options when she was there. And she was basically set financially, but she really liked teaching. And so she didn't need the money to teach, and she could spend a lot of time with students and everything because she could just have her 2 classes and really focus on that and enjoy the benefits of riding Microsoft to their financial peaks.
Son of a bitch right there.
It's a good technical writing spot to go, probably.
You think?
Yep. Although some of their early stuff wasn't real good.
But the company did well.
The company did well, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my first computer would have been one of those 2 floppy disk drive, no hard drive. And I tried to learn Microsoft Word for DOS.
Ooh.
And reading the manual was what?
I still hate Word. I don't think Word has been good since 5.1. I don't really use word processors much anymore. I like just plain old text editors because I'm doing more code than anything else. And text editors are just better. Yeah. And people tell me, how do you do this in Word? I'm like, no clue. If it's Excel, I'm your man. Oh, I'm all out of focus there. That's better. But Word, nope. PowerPoint, nope. It's all Excel and just code for me. It's Viggs, you're probably pretty similar. If you're doing SQL type of stuff, you might even be writing that stuff quickly in a text editor and then running your code.
Yep. I mean, Word does a lot of things with formatting that's very difficult. So I just have.
Well, yeah, that's why I don't use it, because I don't like how it auto formats. I just want simple text.
Yeah, and it messes things up for queries across people and things like that. But we're kind of a Google Doc shop now at the U, so everything's Google Drive and Google Docs and Google Sheets and Google Forms. And
I love how they have the Google Docs for these videos that they do. They record all the Zoom stuff. They make it available. I could edit it together and just put it out for people, because people don't get to see the weekly media scrubs. They might see 30 seconds of it on Channel 5 on those Wednesday or Thursday nights. But people want to see this stuff. In the last couple of years, I'd go down to the scrum down there and I would just do live Twitter video feeds. And people would watch it because they want to see what the coaches have to say. And I noticed, Frank, you guys once in a while are picking up their Zoom feed. I mean, at least you were earlier this year. You were picking up, hey, here's the scrum. Here's what the players are saying. Because I could tell we'd be sitting there on the Zoom feed and there all of a sudden, there you show up. And we could tell you're kind of dropping it. You're kind of listening in once in a while and sometimes picking up that feed for the radio.
Yeah, not often. I mean,
but you have. Not often.
Yeah,
but.
yeah. You remember when we were all there in person, I recorded everything, but that just got to be a lot of work for very few total minutes of airtime. I mean, I'd put in a couple of hours for maybe 3 total minutes of audio.
Mm.
And, and then Saturday morning after my breakfast that was served at the restaurant, on the road,
when Frank goes to Perkins, it has this tremendous 12.
Extra bacon, please. Keep it coming.
Oh.
No one here to second guess me on that order. Pile it on.
Let's make it a tremendous 30 with about 30 strips of bacon. Just bring it all in. Thank you. I don't know. It's been a unique year. I've liked it because I can watch the midweek stuff now. Before I never saw that. Vigs, you could go over there from work when you're at work. You could go be part of it, but in that instance, I was at work. I can't go up and leave and then come back. So it's like it was convenient. The Zooms are very convenient for me. Like today, we were all sitting there from our homes watching this instead of having to go down to Mariucci. Yes, you miss the interaction, but then there is this convenience in that they're pushing the technology. Is that I'm thinking maybe next year when we're starting to have stuff more in person, it's going to be like a hybrid. They're going to have a Zoom. They're going to have people live. It's going to be a combo. I think this pandemic has really brought technology to the front. I mean, just look at what we're doing now. I mean, we're doing a live broadcast here.
Your quality is good. I don't know what I sound like because I'm 3 feet away from my tablet, but I just hope broadcasting gets away from the Zoom quality interviews that we've had for the last 12 months, 11, 12 months. I mean, some of that stuff is just terrible quality. But
it would be nice to see them invest in mics and cameras. Like I'm using my iPhone right now and my Yeti. It probably costs, lots of people have iPhones, but to just set up the Yeti and adapter is like another $100. Make the investment. These institutions get all this exposure with the Zoom now. Yeah. Maximize it. It's not necessarily going away. And it's not that big of an investment to make it super high quality.
I actually bought a webcam. My display has a camera in it, but I actually bought like a Logitech webcam just to have better quality because I didn't like, if I switch over to this camera right here, let's see if I picked the right one. No, I didn't pick the right one.
That doesn't
it's darker. The color's not great because the monitor is like 6 or 7 years old. But if I go back to the Logitech here, color's better. It's brighter. I don't have to fill in so much light in the background.
So is that other shot off of a Mac?
So this shot, I've got one of those old Mac Thunderbolt monitors, which I love the monitor. The display actually itself is great, but this webcam it's old. So it's not the greatest, but it's built in. And I just attached the Logitech above it or right next to it. So it's really, the view doesn't change when I switch cameras. It's just pretty much the same. It's just as a higher quality camera. But I love this monitor. I've got, it's a 27-inch monitor. So I get quite a bit of real estate here compared to what I had before. So, and we've had Yeti microphones I've had one for almost 4 or 5 years. And then you've been using yours for a few years, haven't you, Vigs?
Yep.
And then Frank, you've got yours even.
What's a Yeti mic?
Mine's black. Here, let me move this. His is silver. It's big. Mine's on a boom. Mine's on a boom. So I've kind of got. I've got the shock stand, and I've got the
Excuse
me. Get out the old guys. Yeah. So I've got mine on a boom because I actually use this for work since I'm using the same monitor at work and it's all connected. I'm using this all for work. So I use this. And in fact, they know I've got a microphone. They actually, when we did our rebranding, they used my voice for their off hours. So I had to I recorded these messages for, hey, when they're out of office hours, you could reach this, because they knew I had a microphone and I could just do it real quickly. And I could use my radio voice.
Yeah, we've started to do some help videos that I'll narrate just because it's easy for me to do with the microphone and the setup. And like this office down here has been pretty good for that. It's nice and quiet. I mean, there's a tiny bit of echo for here, but it's pretty good.
Every once in a while, Mike Grimm will turn on his video camera, and Mike Grimm's got his whole setup in his house. He's got the foam going up on the walls, so he doesn't have any echo. I thought about doing that, but I'm just like, I'll just go with my Gopher background instead.
Scott Moore, who does radio for Michigan State, I swear he's got a radio studio in his house. I mean, I don't know if he does. I don't know if he's got a regular gig on the air, but God, has he got the equipment in there?
He's ready for it, huh?
What's that?
He's ready for a regular radio gig.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I think he's a radio head. Which those are the folks that I hung around with when I was in college. I mean, we were all radio heads, and I learned a lot. I mean, it was cool. We were 24/7. If we were awake, we were at the radio station. It was great. But
for me,
that microphone that I showed you, I mean, that came from Learfield, because with Wally and I doing player interviews from our homes, those intermission interviews, especially my laptop, the microphone quality was just god awful.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't record on an iPad. You can't record Zoom on an iPad.
Really? Well, it might be. I might have a pro. Oh, I'm using my business account, but it's a pro account. I don't even record to the computer. I actually record to the cloud. So when I record the video portions of this, it goes out to the cloud and records that.
Yeah, I'm not. Maybe a pro Zoom account would allow.
But yeah, but it's like $150 a year for that. But they do that since I do a lot of Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
But I've always felt that, there's a reason why we used Skype back in the day for this, because Skype had the best audio quality. It wasn't the greatest, but it was better than anything else. And one thing I learned about podcasting is if your audio sucks, people aren't going to listen.
Right. Yeah.
And I remember listening to the old Inch podcast. I'm going to rip on Jess here, but the Inch podcast used to have audio levels like this. You would barely be able to hear somebody, and then somebody come in really loud. And it was just all over the place. I'm like, I just can't do that. So we've always had pretty good audio, and it has worked because Skype was a good source of doing that. And plus, I don't use any hardware. It's all laptop based. My laptop's running right now. It processes, all the audio. It sends it back out. I use virtual type of mixers to bring in sounds from different sources, and then brings those sounds together and sends them out during different channels. It's nice, and it allows me to run a show, video, audio, recording all at once. Technology, it's pretty cool.
Pretty amazing.
Because we were doing live podcasts, broadcasting. We've been done it for quite a while, haven't we, Viggs?
Yeah, 7 years, 8 years.
And so, because I always liked the live part of it. I always liked the live audio where people could sit and chat and ask us questions. And we could respond to them. I really like the interaction. Even if it's on a recorded podcast, the interaction was great. And we still get that now when Twitter questions or people sit there and chat and ask us questions. I love that interaction, and I hope we can keep doing it. I like it. As long as I get my pro Zoom account that I don't have to pay for.
Frank, there's probably a way to get you a U of M Zoom account somehow.
Why would I? Thank you, but
because then you could do whatever recording you need to do on Zoom from anywhere.
Yeah, but right now I got it figured out. Like goes on my laptop. I cut the audio. I cut the beginning and the end, and send a 3-minute interview off to the engineer, and he runs it. But I just told Wally today. I said, it's, especially with this, with the race heating up, and we're, what I used to do on the media day is I would record. If I didn't record the whole thing, I'd get it from Brian Deutsch or Wally record part of it, and then cut up all of those player interviews into sound bites and different topics, and talking about this player, talking about that player. Well, that's something Chris Withers did in TV. So he had a sound bite when we were on Fox. He would have a sound bite for every situation, so that through the weekend he could build whatever he needed to build. Well, so that's kind of what I took as my lesson. That's a lot of work for radio. But I told Wally today, I said, why don't we just take like 3 sound bites? Well, this topic, this topic, this topic. I'll have, 60 seconds total. I won't have to spend a whole day editing, and we'll have some audio either for pregame or intermissions. He said, yeah, great. So I think we might do that a little bit more going down the line. But
now, what kind of software are you using for your sound bits? Do you have like a soundboard where you're just hitting the button to activate a sound, like an interview? There is that kind of software out there on the iPad where you literally just, program this sound for this button, and that kind of like an old audio board.
Well, I try. Let's see. It's a heck of a lot easier for me to edit sound bites in chunks on a laptop with a mouse than it is on a tablet. So
I would agree. Yep.
Audacity is the.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Audacity or Audio? Yeah, it's Audacity.
Audacity. Yeah, I've heard it. Yeah.
So I record on my laptop. I run Zoom on my laptop. I hit the record button, record the interview or record the media thing. And then when I hit leave, it processes it and it drops it onto my hard drive as a one video file. And if I needed a separate audio file, video and audio. So I just take the audio file, bring it into Audacity, cut the front and back off of it, send it to the engineer, and that's about as easy as it's going to get.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You see, for like the Zoom here, it's recording the gallery view, so all 3 of us at once. It's also setting a separate recording of the single view. So if somebody's talking, it fills the whole screen of that person. And then what I'll do is I'll take both of those and I'll kind of cut them together and say, if someone is talking for a long time, I'll switch over to a single view. But when it's a group like this, like when it's like last week, it was just Viggs and I on one. We didn't have any guests. So it's kind of nice just to have us both up on the screen all the time. But if like Viggs starts talking for a long time, it's nice to be able to just cut over to that other clip of him, by himself, which is kind of nice. So Zoom will record, the cloud records this view, the gallery view, the single view, and it does the audio file. I just don't like to record it to my hard drive because I'm already recording the podcast on GarageBand, and I don't want to be trying to record and have the hard drive getting hit with 2 recordings at once, which is what problems I've had in the past. I like that Zoom at least puts it out in the cloud. And if I forget to hit record on Zoom, I can always go back to YouTube and grab this live recording of the YouTube and edit that, which I've done several times. We're just a bunch of nerds.
Yeah, well, thank God for nerds.
I got to pull the parachute, guys.
All right.
Yeah, mine's at the end.
I'm almost done.
Thanks.
Good show.
Second shoot. Thanks for coming on, Frank.
Thanks for coming on,
Appreciate it.
Frank. Boy,
Wish we could see you Friday.
yeah, well, maybe
One
we'll
of
have
these
to get
days.
you on. Maybe we'll have to get you on again towards the end of the season. Like I said, I want to do a big group thing where we all are just talking about the season. I think it would be fun. We'll give it a try.
I'm game.
All right. Thanks, guys, for being on the show.